Hi, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Swamp Rose, and I really appreciate you coming out tonight for this live stream. We have a special guest. He's not here yet, but we're going to have A.R. Hayes on, and we're talking about several different things. Obviously, there was a new document released today, and it talks about all the things. It answers a lot of questions that we've had, and I'm just going to pull that up and get right into it because A.R. has a lot to say about this, so we'll just read the document first and be ready for him when he gets here. And thank you for everyone in the chat who showed up tonight. We have Angel here with us and Hako. Too fast, although I just want to put a different comment. Curious Rose. There's so much to talk about. So they've assigned a judge, just to summarize what we're about to read. They've assigned a judge, and pretty quickly, Brian Kohlberger is going to be transferred to Ada County. I have a little bit of information of where he's being transferred to. I have a little bit of information on the judge who's going to be taking over the case. And so I'm going to bring up this first document and get started. So, I mean, this is, well, let me make sure you can see this. This is like different than all the other documents that we've seen so far. So obviously this is issued from a different court, the Supreme Court of Idaho. And I'll read this to you. An order granting defendant's motion to change venue was entered into the district court, wherein it was requested that the venue for trial be transferred from Latah County, Second Judicial District, in the case listed below, State of Idaho versus Brian Koberger, Latah County, case number CR 29-22-2805. Therefore, after due consideration and good cause appearing, it is ordered that the venue for all further proceedings in this case are transferred from Latah County, Second Judicial District, to Ada County, Fourth Judicial District. It is further ordered that the District Judge Stephen Hippler shall be assigned to this case and may not be disqualified without cause pursuant to the Idaho Criminal Code 25A9C. It is further ordered that the defendant shall be transferred forthwith to the custody of the Ada County Sheriff pursuant to Idaho Code Section 19-1805. It is further ordered that the District Court Clerk for Latah County shall file and serve this order upon the parties or the council and take any action necessary to transfer venue to the case to Ada County. And that was dated today, the 12th of September. I just put myself back on the screen. Oh, hey, Liz. Okay, so some of the questions that I had when this first document, or the first question that I had is, at this point, if anything comes up, because we haven't had any hearings, we haven't had BK transferred out of the prison that he's in now, I just wondered, well, if a ruling needs to be made, would it be made by this new judge or would it be made by Judge John Judge? And from what my fact checkers, the Too Fast who's in the chat was helping me understand these documents earlier, everything is now under the control of Judge Hippler. So it has nothing to do with Judge John Judge anymore. And BK will be transferred as soon as possible to the Ada County Sheriff's Department. So I'm going to bring up, I kind of don't want to bring this up without AR here. I have a couple things to show you before he gets here. Why don't I show you, and we're going to start by showing you something. I looked at, before I came on, I went over to the G Family's Facebook page just to see if they had made a statement about this, and they did. It's very short and concise, but I'll read it to you just so you can know at least what one of the victims' families has spoke out and said. Oh, this looks like this is just someone from their Facebook group. But this, which they've reposted on the front, says, John Judge, the judge can stop judging, and that's a plus. So at least you know from the families that even though we know they protested the move, it sounds like there's at least they're seeing some of the positives that are coming out of this. All right, so I am going to bring up the Ada County Jail. Because I want to show this to you. So this is where BK is going to be transferred. The inmate housing. So the maximum security unit I wonder if I can highlight this. The maximum security unit is the most secure housing area for inmates with the highest security risk. It has 88 beds. And so that's where BK will be going. But it's a large jail. Like the other parts of it, like this part has 92 beds. The medium security has like 308 beds. And then I did have a soundbite that I wanted to play you. I'm trying to avoid playing like sound bites for mainstream media, but I found some really good local sound bites. So I'm going to bring up, I like WKRM. There's also the Spokane, Washington website also has a good sound bite that I can play for you too. And then I'll just start talking to the chat until AR gets here, I guess. Sorry, it's not as fun when I'm by myself. All right, so this is, make sure I have the website right before I start. Yeah, WKREM.
Tonight, an Idaho Supreme Court judge has ruled the trial for accused Moscow murderer Brian Kohberger won't happen in North Idaho.
Instead, the trial for Kohberger, who is charged with killing 4 University of Idaho students almost 2 years ago, will now take place in Ada County. KREM 2's Connor McAvoy spoke with a legal expert for more on what this means. Connor?
Mark Whitney, the new trial location in Boise is 300 miles away from where the crime occurred. This new ruling means all future proceedings in the case will be held in the Ada County Courthouse under 4th District Judge Stephen Hippler. This is something Kohberger's defense team has been asking for since January. Kohberger's defense team fought for the relocation of the trial, arguing a close-knit community in Moscow combined with the amount of news coverage wouldn't make it possible for an impartial jury. Former Idaho Attorney General Dave Leroy says the change will be costly and both counties will have to work together when it comes to funding the relocation.
Every individual juror who ultimately sits in this case will have to assure the court that they are open, unbiased, will decide the case solely on the evidence that's presented in the courtroom. That will be easier to do in Ada County than it would be in Latah County.
He also says he's in support of the trial relocation, saying the amount of publicity in a small community such as Moscow could affect the validity in this case. The judge noted the new location has protected routes for witnesses to enter and leave the courtroom. Last year, Kohberger opted to stand silent when asked to enter a plea in the case, and that led to a not guilty plea entered on his behalf by the judge. Kohberger's arrest occurred 6 weeks after the killing. The trial date is set for June.
It's the best sale of the year. Get a Sealy King bed for a queen.
Where is that commercial?
Get matched at Mattress Firm. Sleep at night.
Oh, it's up here. Hey, LA. So, and then, I mean, I don't think if AR is not going to show up, we're going to just make this a short and sweet live stream. I do have a couple things. I could talk to you guys about confidential informants if you wanted, but I don't know how deep you want to go into a rabbit hole tonight. I do have I am going to go to one other article that I read on this because I feel like it's from a really good source, since I didn't know, I wasn't really planning on sharing it with you, but this article is from, I want to say it's from like Herald Law or something. Let me find it in my archives. Oh, Lawyer Herald. Hold on. I can't find it in here. There it is. Okay, here we go. I will say, when I was talking about this earlier to my mods, I did write this one point down about the judge because I didn't see it in my research, but apparently the judge has a reputation for being very harsh or strict with his sentencing. That's too fast. So I'm going to read this to you. I just feel like it comes from a pretty good source, so I thought it was a good article or a good read. So the trial for accused quadruple murderer Brian Kohlberger will be moved to Boise, Idaho, weeks after the defense argued for a change of venue. The Idaho Supreme Court announced in its ruling Thursday, District Judge Stephen Hippler will preside over the case, according to the filing reviewed by lawyer Harrow. As a result of the location switch-up, Kohlberger, 29, has been ordered to be transferred to the custody of Ada County Sheriff. Considering the undisputed evidence presented to the defense, an extreme nature of the news coverage in this case, and the smaller population in Latah County, the defense has met the rather low standard for demonstrating reasonable likelihood that the prejudicial news coverage will compromise the fair trial in Latah County. Judge John Judge ruled Monday, according to ABC News. Thus, the court will grant Brian Kohlberger's motion to change venue from presumed prejudice. But what is this wicked funny advertisement right here? Good Lord. Kohlberger's defense attorneys began arguments last. It's making me laugh. Kohlberger's defense attorneys began arguing last month that the Latah County residents possessed a general hostility towards mob mentality toward the alleged killer, and therefore could not be guarantee him a fair trial. According to theoretical phone study, NBC News previously reported. If a jury failed to convict Brian Kohlberger, respondents said they would burn down the courthouse and that they would probably find him and kill him. Another said they would likely be a riot and he wouldn't last long outside because somebody would go kill the good old boy Justice. Brian Kohlberger, the former criminology justice PhD student, allegedly stabbed Madison Mogan, 21, Kaylee Gonzalez, 21, Xana Kernodle, 20, and Ethan Chapin, 20, to death in their University of Idaho off-campus apartment on November 22nd. He was arrested 6 weeks later during a visit with his parents in Pennsylvania after DNA evidence, surveillance video, and cell phone records allegedly tied him to the scene of the crime. Kohlberger was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary in the college student slayings. He pleaded guilty. He pleaded not guilty to the charges on May 23rd, and the motive remains under investigation. And I don't think this is the article I actually wanted to read you guys. But I'm just going to turn to the chat and talk to you guys for a little bit, and then I guess I'm just going to call it a night. And I am having AR back on the show tomorrow, so it's a totally different show, though. It's probably good. He doesn't need to be included in our boring updates. Wait, hold on. Angel D says, "How ridiculous is that comment? All mainstream media have run with the old boy quote, ironically confirms the defense's argument about influencing potential jury members, in my humble opinion. Clever move." It kind of baffles me too. Like it did kind of feel like people, like both the prosecution and defense were trying to get this case moved. I kind of like Meanie's comment right here because it sort of is aligned with my sentiments as well. Meanie says, "Sirius Black, I'm not so humble. In my not so humble opinion, an open mind is very much needed. I want to base my opinions on facts, not rumor." If it were 2 years ago or when we first heard of BK being arraigned, all of us would be singing the same tune. We're going to wait until the trial, see what the evidence is. But somewhere along the line, those standards were just tossed out the window. I feel like at least on one side of the camp. Oh, it's in my honest opinion. Is it am I honest or am I humble? Because I always thought, this is just a little etiquette thing, and I could be totally wrong because I don't have the greatest etiquette, but I always thought it was you don't say in my honest opinion because you should always be honest. And if you say, honestly, that's what I think, it's like people are like, well, why weren't you honest before now? So I always say in my humble opinion. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. I'm glad the venue has changed, but this is all happening so fast. I know, but it's good. It sounds like I was thinking to myself, so we were thinking, when are we going to hear? When are we going to hear about the venue change? Nobody really even knew like what time frame or what ballpark time frame that would be in. But since it was so quickly, maybe it's an indicator that this court moves at a faster pace. So, and when we read through the paperwork, nothing has changed. The trial is still slated for the same time frame. So who knows? Maybe they can keep the same time frame. Oh, hey, Wolf Angel. Nice to see you. Oh, Twiz didn't get to say his goodbyes. But I mean, in all seriousness, Twiz, thank you for spending so much time and bringing us that inside knowledge. Like, it was really great. And you did invest a lot of time in that. You probably did meet some friends at the courthouse. Yeah. Okay, so Ty Knots agrees with me. Yes, humble. Thank you. You're just going to go back to in my opinion. Yeah. Too fast says, I feel bad for BK's family. That's a 34-hour drive for them to go to court. I mean, just putting it in perspective. If we were just reading the comment about it being 300 miles past where Twiz is going to court. To state the obvious. Oh, again, you're speaking all of my keywords that I try to follow in this podcast. Mimi's talking to Sirius Black, though. I'm happy to hear your objective. I love balance and objectivity. And I think objectivity is a skill as well. Hey, thank you so much for the like and the share. Okay, Twiz says, my honest opinion is they sucked in. Yeah, I will too. We'll know a lot from the first hearing, but I mean, we can just go by this example. Look how quickly they've taken over the case. And nobody could really give a straight answer as to how long it would be, which makes me believe that there is no answer to that question. It's when they get around to taking the case. So, I mean, we have an example now of how quickly they work. So. Me, I feel like you have to be objective. If we want true justice, it has to be fair and accurate. Just what I think anyway. Somebody must have gotten a DNA test result in here or something because they're sharing all of where they're from, their families are from. I wouldn't want my parents in court. Seriously, maybe once or twice. I mean, I don't know how it's gonna, all these hearings are just to decide they're evidentiary hearings, but imagine when the trial starts. I mean, it's gonna be estimated 6 weeks. You would think they probably would make some plans to have an extended stay, if they can. So Red Riding Hood says, I'm sorry, Kiki, I was 12 minutes late. So here the court has been chosen and judged. Did the Supreme Court rule today? I'm live I live under a rock in Cali on fire. Again, we're praying for your community. We're praying for your safety, your family's safety. We're praying for the nature and the wildlife. The images are just horrific coming out of California right now. But just to answer your question, yes, the Supreme Court, we found a ruling under Brian Koberger dated today, and the Supreme Court has taken over. The new judge's name is Stephen Hippler, and BK pretty quickly will be transferred to I don't want to get the name of it wrong. It's the Ada County Jail. And I think I have my numbers wrong because it says it holds 160 inmates plus 32 work release inmates. Oh, no, that was at the beginning. Now it is expanded. It holds 1,116 beds. It's a large prison, I think. I don't really know. Wednesday is the first hearing. Wow, that's some inside information. I didn't realize that. A question I would have for the live chat: is there a streaming channel or YouTube channel, or does anyone know where the hearing is going to be? If it's going to be televised, if it is going to be televised, where it's going to be televised? Does anybody know anything? I would imagine if we know how it went in the Daybell trial and the Lori Vallow trial, we'd probably know. If we know what they did, we'd probably know what's going to happen with BK, I would imagine. Yeah, the first hearing will be very telling. We'll be able to glean a lot from everybody. Oh, hey, Heather. Hey, Robert. Robert, I don't know if you want to cover Idaho 4 right now, but you're welcome to jump up. I'm worried about AR. He's not here. Oh, you guys are besties? Let's see. No ancestry test. My direct relatives were from... I'm just going to pull up one of them because she's typing it publicly. I don't think she minds. No ancestry test. My direct relatives were from Norway and moved to Scotland. Then they moved to Australia. Must be the Viking genes. Conquer the world. LOL. Sounds like it. On the surface, one person doing this is a big lie, in my opinion. I want to say, Robert, I really appreciate your reporting on the. You did some coverage of. It was like there was these stories going on about a connection from BK to the recent tragic, horrible school shooting that happened, and you told me that it was fake news, and I really didn't dive into it and ask you questions, but people started coming at me with this story, and I just kind of stuck to what you said. And lo and behold, I found out like there was a ton of fake things in that. There was a ton of fake stories about people faking memes and posts from that kid. So I do appreciate Robert's due diligence in reporting on this channel. Thank you, Robert. Not Robert? Oh, I thought you were saying that that wasn't his profile. All right, I'm going up because I knew there were comments before there, but I wanted to go to the new ones first. And then I'm going to call it a night. I didn't see the latest interview with the G's. Are we talking about the one where they were in the Memorial Garden? That most recent interview? I mean, if I'm like from memory, it was definitely edited because there were multiple cameras. Like you could see it cutting away. Um, wait. Okay. I'm going to just really quickly see if I can find the G's latest interview while we're on this subject. Hey, JB. Because I'm curious too now. Because if there's a more recent interview, I haven't seen it and I'd like to know. Oh, thanks, Twiz. This is a really good, before I pull up the G's interview, Mitch always coming through with good info. Mitch Girl says, hi, Kiki. The TT account, the TikTok account, the account didn't belong to the GA shooter. It belonged to someone named Colton, not Colt. DTS was wrong to say they were the connection to BK. And I don't know. I don't even where the origins of this started. I think it started down at, I think it started on Twitter. I don't know, but it's something that I'm becoming so cautious of because I had, in this case, I thought I had like somebody providing an official email address for BK that I've been using for like a year. And come to find out it was a fraudulent account. So all the other things that I thought were from BK were all fake. And we just have to be so diligent when we look at these cases. It's crazy. But I mean, it's stuff like that, why the venue is getting changed. Oh, there's so many comments I've missed. I'm sorry. There is a real recent interview. I'm trying to remember where. Well, we got it, Glenda. Twiz says it's on Long Crime Network. I better start. Where is it? Yeah, we learned, if you didn't watch Sai's most recent video, it was Sai and Carrie, I should say, Social Lake Crime Club. It was really fascinating. It was on something called geofencing because the 5th District Court in the US has ruled geofencing as unconstitutional. And it brings up all sorts of questions to me. So geofencing is basically taking an area or a shape and you can find out all of the cell phones and all of their activity, basically everywhere they traveled within that section. But you have to be more specific. You have to be looking for a specific person. And so it was ruled against. But it's a really interesting episode if you haven't seen it. And there was a point in there, but I forgot what it is. Oh yeah, what I was going to say is I have questions about this ruling because with this information, with geofencing, if you have a general area where someone is, you can find out all the activity in the area. So I was wondering, like, okay, so you can't use it to get information on a criminal, but if there's some sort of public safety issue, like if you're trying to, I don't want to say the word because my last live stream got flagged for talking about changing temperature. So I want to be careful with my wording, but a schmeris, someone who wants to do harm to our country, like, can't they enter a public safety issue? Like if they think if there's a missing child or a missing person, I wonder, can they use the geofencing? Like, can the government access it for like a public safety issue? Because sometimes the Constitution can override it because it just seems like such a useful tool. And like if there was like an Amber Alert or a missing person, you would think that they'd have exceptions to it to use the geofencing for that. So I have so many further questions after this ruling. So I know I've just kind of gone off on a tangent, but that's why. That's why Cy would know. I think that's what they're talking about. Well, have a great day at work. Thank you for spending your lunch break with us. Okay. Hey, it's Love Tina 2010. Nice to see you. Question. Can this new judge change anything judge set forth till he transferred? I hope I'm making sense. I think I like the question appears to me two different ways. And I think I've asked the same question, if I understand it correctly. You're saying before he gets transferred over to the Ada County Jail, and before the hearing, can he change anything? And I don't think that at this point that case is out of judge's hands completely. He can't make any further decisions on the case. But if you're talking about changing things that he's already put into the case, my understanding is yes. And I think that one of the biggest questions is he going to remove this gag order? Is he going to stop the confusion? Because I think one of the biggest things I'm hearing now is this argument back and forth about the confidential informant, with the co-defendant language that was in the original documents. And if they just lifted the gag order, we'd see what's going on. But instead we have like defensive strategy and strategy from the prosecution to put little tidbits out into the public eye and try and bias the opinions of the people, I mean, allegedly, of the people paying attention. I'm sorry, Meanie, I don't know what you're referencing. Yeah, have a good day at work. Not Heather Fitzgerald is here. That's nice. Nancy Drew was written better than the Hardy Boys with pick 3. Wait, can the new judge sanction the prosecution for not turning over discovery? That is such a good question. I'm putting a star there. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Are the prosecutors under their control, or would he have to go to judge to have judge put sanctions on them? What a great question. I don't know. If the chat knows, please let us know. I mean, can't he just force discovery at this point? And then I think he would probably, well, first off, the sanctions have to be initiated by the defense, if I'm not mistaken. So AT would have to motion to have the sanctions put on, and then the judge would have to decide. So I guess at this next hearing, she could just go ahead and motion to the Judge Hippler, and he can decide whether to put sanctions on them. I think that's how it has to go. If I'm mistaken, please correct me in the chat. What? Yeah. Hey, Kane, how's it going? Nice to see you. Yes, Kane, we were talking all about the new venue. The new venue, the new players in the game, where BK is going to be housed. Again, just to say it is Judge Stephen Hippler. I do not have a photograph. I got a couple online, but I'm not sure if it's the right judge. So I just don't want to put that out there. We'll find out soon enough anyway. And I did get like a little bit of bio on him, but I don't want to show the page because it like has all his clerks' information with their phone numbers and stuff. Oh no, are you sick? Because you're out streaming late night. I have to add that one to my list for tomorrow night. So AR and I are doing, I'll just tell you guys what my special is tomorrow night. I think we're probably going to do it at 10:30 as well. And we're doing Idaho 4 Mythbusters. And we're going to come up with like all the hoaxes, all the different things that aren't true, the little rumors that were spread. And we have a pretty big list. And so my mods have been helping me put it together. And the idea for the show came from Too Fast. And so, yeah, tune in tomorrow night. AR will be there. Cool. I'm sorry, your comment threw me off, Meanie. I'm like reading it because I don't know. All right, we're gonna go to that soundbite that Twiz told us about in a second. I just wanted to get to. Yeah, not to mention he's seen the tower jump. So I just talked about the geofencing, and he's seen the tower jumps, which are basically just a dragnet of everybody who connected to the tower at that time. No, Nancy Drew. Yes, they will stop having a hearing about a hearing to schedule a hearing about a previous hearing that set a date for a future hearing. That's about right. Hey, Typically Unique. Welcome back. It's like, who knows what I said 10 minutes ago. Wait, what? Robert says, Swamp Rose, sorry, I can't join panel tonight. Helping a friend boot his ex out. Robert, there is never a dull moment in your life. Be careful. It's the most dangerous time in a relationship. I can't put not Swamp Rose's comment. Oh, Robert.
Hey, just popping in for a few minutes to show my support.
Is your friend okay?
No, yeah, my friend's okay. I'm just helping him kick out his ex-girlfriend.
I hope that everybody's safe, because that can be the most that's the most dangerous time for somebody. It's when they're breaking up.
No, she's going quietly. He walked in from work and caught her in bed with another man. So, he ended up booting her out. So I'm just over here helping him really quick to pack her stuff and get her out of his house. So, I can't stay long. Just wanted to pop in and show my support for you guys.
I appreciate you showing your support, and Robert, you're a good friend. And good for your friend for, not taking her back or listening to excuses or anything like that. So I'm glad he has you as a support system. And whatever time you offer us, I just appreciate you coming up. I'm kind of floundering here without AR. So, do you have time to show us one of your pets?
Was he supposed to be here tonight?
Yeah, I'm a little worried about him, but it's no big deal. It's just a live stream. You know what I really wanted from AR? I wanted him to tell us about the Ada County Correctional Facility. Do you know anything about that?
No, I do not know anything about that. But I did drop a video today on the change of venue. So, and I do have a couple more videos that I'm going to be posting when I get home. One's about some cold cases, and the other one's about Delphi. But I dropped the change of venue video earlier today. It's only like 15 minutes.
Oh, really? Well, I mean, I might as well play that and read the chat before I go. I mean,
you can go ahead and play it. I got to get out of here. I just came up to show my support to you and to the wonderful community that you myself and AR belong to. And yeah, I just kind of popped outside really quick. You know, he's going to be probably poking his head out any minute, going, "Help!"
you're a good friend. Thank you to me too. Thank you for popping in to say hello. I appreciate it.
You guys have a good night, and I'll more likely be listening on my earbuds. I won't be in chat very much. It just depends on how long it takes us to get her out of here. So,
All right. Well, still, even though I know you're in a safe place, just still be careful and don't leave him alone.
no, I'm not. All right. Have a good night, guys.
Bye, Robert. Okay. So we're going to bring up that soundbite for that on the Law and Order channel with the G's new interview. But I just wanted to say, well, first I want to say not Swamp Rose is here, but I can't put that comment up because I had the banner put up in my last live stream for something I said. And it really hurt my circulation. I don't even the video probably has 1,000 views right now. So I don't want to make that mistake again. But what I was saying is welcome, not Swamp Rose and Jen. I hope you're doing good. You've been lurking? Well, we'd love to have any insights. I mean, I know you are really good with research. So if you dug anything up, you have anything you'd like to say about the judge or the new prison that BK is going to, anything, we'd love to hear your insights. I'm sure you've found something already. What? It comes on the video back and forth and clothes change interchanged, leaving it's obvious. Are we talking about the new interview? Oh, I guess we are. Okay, you guys. I'm getting there. Oh, I don't know if this is the real Pia, but thank you for telling me to hit the like button and thank you for being here. All right. I'm getting there, you guys. There's just so many new comments. Oh, Megxcellent. Nice to see you. Megxcellent says, I wanted to pop in. Oh, what a cute car. I wanted to pop in and say hi. I hope everyone has a great evening. I'm usually on the replay crew. I'm going to listen while I fall asleep. Well, thank you for coming in. And I like your profile pic. You look really cute. Hey, Rolo. Damn, don't we all wish to have a friend like this in chat and put the biz out? Wait. Now is the time where I start reading the comments before I display them. Oh, we're all commenting about Robert. Robert's a good friend, you have to admit. He's always comes through for his friends. And then he leaves his wife home with like 20 pets and a 9-year-old. No judgment here, just look at him. So. Hey, Leslie, Billy, nice to see you. Yes, we're on the same page. Swamp Bros, we come from the same places. I appreciate your objectivity and believe you're trying to find the truth. I really appreciate that. Thank you. It's the highest compliment you can give me about my podcast. I really do appreciate it. The beginning was kind of slow, I'll admit. It was kind of a rough start, but if you can get through it, there's a lot of information in there for you. Oh, and then Jen says, responding to what I said about her research, honestly, I have zero interest in the court stuff. I follow at surface level. I have too much to focus on whodunit because it's not BK Swamp Rose. That's good. She relies on Heather Fitzgerald for her report. Yeah, we all feel bad for your friend. We know you're listening, and thank you for coming on and spilling the tea. You're the good. What? I'm deleting all my videos. What? Rolla, sometimes you have to wait for the camera. I have trouble uploading if I don't let the file sit in my pictures for a little bit and process. I don't know if that's helpful to you. Wait, what? I don't understand. Just because I said I'd take the blame for browser history. Wait. I'm going to read the comments before I put them up. I do remember the hamster. The reason why the hamster was looking like that was because there's a freaking snake, 2 dogs, and isn't there another pet in there that could take the hamster out? I can't remember. Doesn't Robert have another pet? Give me the headlights. Wait. Patrina Henry. Why do you say that? I dug and I really couldn't find much. But I would like to say one thing we did hear, though, is this judge does apply pretty harsh sentencing. But I wonder what influenced you to say that. We'd love to know. Drop it in the chat. Oh, thank you for coming. And while you're thanking my mods, I also want to thank my mods for being here and keeping the chat classy. I appreciate everything that you do. Thank you. Okay, so Red Riding Hood says, how much time do you think this will take the new judge to get caught up on for this trial? It's possible he could change the date and make it sooner. I don't know. And the other thing I'm wondering is, in anticipation of this, I mean, I don't know if every judge is qualified to do a death penalty case, but maybe all of the judges who thought they were potentially could take on the case, maybe they've been following the paperwork. I think the problem is, though, is I'm kind of answering my own question as I'm saying this, is how could they follow the paperwork? Everything is sealed, gagged, and redacted. So, like, even everything you've read about, yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. Does anybody have idea how? That's actually one that I will ask AR, because in roughly the same county in Idaho, he had a similar case. His charges were all, he was never charged in it, or his charges were dropped, something along those lines. But he was incarcerated for like 7 years waiting for his trial, and part of the delay was venue change. And he would be a great person to ask, okay, after you were granted that venue change, how long did it take for the court to review your case? So I will get back to you. That's a great question, and I will go straight to the source. And I am getting to that soundbite in a moment. Yeah, it was really cute. I can't remember his name. Oh, you guys, I'm not displaying your comment. I'm curious to know the history of the police over in Ada, whether they have a track record similar to MPD or not. I did, yeah, I do too. I mean, I don't think I don't think that the fact that AT was saying the Frank's hearings are coming is changing anything because the venue changes. And again, this is, you know, I'm just speculating here and everything, but like, I just did a video today talking about some of the confusion in the language and talking about confidential informants, co-defendants, IGG, all of this. And gosh, I wonder what the Franks hearings are going to be about, because if you know anything about them, they have to do with chain of custody or evidence that, or something being wrong that would get a search warrant thrown out. And everyone keeps going back to the DNA. I'm just rambling. Ignore me. Wait, Brian was obsessed, stalking one of those girls. I mean, David, we totally respect your opinion, but we haven't seen any connection to the girls or Ethan. And in open court in a hearing, we heard the defense also say there's no connection, and they found no connection. Now there's talk about the pings and the 12 times that the pings happen that they talk about in the PCA, but I'm refraining from putting opinion on the pings until I find out more of Sai's testimony, because even that, I'm not sure if I believe. So I don't know what you're referencing, but I'm assuming you're talking about the 12 pings that are in the PCA. I don't know. There's been a lot of fake stories about that made, and there were actually fake accounts made to make it appear like he was stalking them. Even one of the most prominent ones that we've been using the email address off of to look at other BK information. So, no. I just saw your comment. I thought it'd be interesting to know what you're talking about. New judge needs to put everyone in a toddler timeout and let them think about what they've done, then proceed with adulting. Hear, hear. No, Nancy Drew. Heather Fitzgerald, your brain is on par with another I respect. You best stay hard. Yeah, keep the chat. Thank you for keeping the chat classy until hour 2 comes along and things get a little. I'm just kidding. Jen says, the good Jen says, prosecutors literally said he was not stalking. Stop with the false info, David Byrd. But he did nothing of the sort. The other thing is, I don't know, David Byrd? I thought it was somebody else who said that. Oh, it's David. Yeah, it wasn't, it was the other David. He threw me off for a second. But also, we don't know if the other David is new to the case, because it's not the other David's fault if he's been told stories by trusted sources that say this. I mean, that's the problem, is that there's so many people on YouTube that in the mainstream media who lie. And I'm not saying that in like a generalized, like, you know, assuming kind of way. Like, there's literally documented hoaxes, and there were documented hoaxes for stalking. So he might be new to the case. He might not know. I mean, other than our ultra specific, you know, Idaho 4 true crime niche we have here, other people might not have heard about the things that we talk about. So I just, you know, I don't want to be hard on anyone until we find out what they're talking about. And then I'm just kidding. This is interesting. So we were talking about how long it would take to review the case, and Tony Stevens says, what takes judge a year would take a real judge about a month. Oh, you guys, I'm starting to yawn already. Heather Fitzgerald, I don't know about anyone else, but I don't know. Kiki saying that the other night. Oh gosh, I say such. I don't know what I said. Do judges have access to all the evidence? I mean, they're the gatekeeper, so I would imagine yes, if they were requested to review something. Colleen, that's a great question. I'm throwing a star on that because, and I mean, when I first read your question, I'm thinking to myself, do judges have access to other cases if they wanted to look at it? But now that I'm reading it, that's really good. It's really interesting. I mean, they would, okay, so when AT was asking for video footage, remember she wanted to know the timestamp for the videos? She was told she had to go to the evidence clerk in order to get that and request it. So if the judge wanted to see something, I mean, theoretically, I think he has to just go to the evidence clerk or have one of his clerks go to the evidence clerk and ask. And again, everything I say is speculation. I am getting that soundbite up in a second. Patrina, what were you talking about, Patrina? You best dig harder. Yeah, I was wondering what you were talking about. Wait a minute. I doubt he would set a trial date to be sooner. It's likely he will get pushed. No, I don't think he'll, sorry, I don't think he'll set it sooner, but I'm wondering if he can somehow keep the date that they have. What that's in response to what I was saying about he has to review the evidence. Yeah, we're really sensitive. I think where the sensitivity lies for those, for the David who was asking the question, is that my lighting is like not on me. Stalking is a legal term, so it has to meet certain criteria, and it doesn't mean that there wasn't surveillance or other things going on, but when we use the term stalking, it carries legal implications with it, particularly in the state of Idaho. And the incidences that were described, as far as we know, don't qualify for the legal term stalking. So that's why in the chat, a lot of people who follow the case are very sensitive when you bring up the term stalking, because it's a legal term. It's not just describing what we think happened. Oh, Jeff H is here? I don't know what you're leaving me to. Serious Black says, Meanie, I used to think he was absolutely guilty, but I have changed my mind about now. I have tried to go back and look at everything differently. I won't make a judgment until trial. It's the best thing for our society too, because the fact is that no matter what happens, even though we're not legally required as citizens to have innocent until proven guilty, it's our duty to have that attitude, because ultimately the jury that is chosen for a trial is a cross section of the people within the area where the crime was committed. And what if that cross section doesn't have that attitude? And that's why we should teach others and always have it be the standard that we try our best to wait and see the evidence before we convict. And I could go on for hours about it, because it literally plays like our Constitution was formed under that concept. I was having a conversation with Trisha from Echoes of Clarity. I'm so sorry if I got your channel handle wrong, but we were talking about a book I read in October called Killing the Witches, and it was about the Salem witch trials, but it had an entire chapter of historically how deeply that mob mentality and having complete rule over your local government completely can cause mob mentality and can ultimate power corrupts ultimately. So measures were taken in our Constitution, literally from the Salem witch trials and what happened there, so that they could prevent local governments from it ever happening again. So my whole point is that the whole innocent until proven guilty, we do have an obligation to maintain that attitude. I guess I get tired and I just start trailing off on like a word salad. Okay. The prosecution team recently told SG that they had a difficult time finding a connection between BK and the victim. Yeah. And that's why it was so baffling when the Garrett discovery story erupted a couple weeks ago or a month ago or however long ago it was, because we're told there's no connection, but then we have this professional giving an interview saying that they have a connection. And then, so we're like, well, who's lying to us? Is it the police who say they have no connection, or is it this person who's saying there is a connection? Yeah, and then that's the other thing is in open court. This is a good point to make. Thank you again, Colleen, for another good comment. In open court, the prosecution said, there was no stalking. So that's to be noted as well. Didn't he go to a restaurant one of the girls worked at? We don't know. The Mad Greek, the restaurant you're referencing, the only connection that's been made was that he was devout vegan and they actually served a couple of vegan dishes at that restaurant. But when people started covering this case and they were in Moscow, Idaho, and they Googled vegan restaurant, this particular restaurant came up and the girls worked there. They did talk to people there. So we don't know what the ultimate answer is. They stopped talking to the press pretty quickly. But from accounts that we've heard, nobody recognized BK. And we don't know what everybody said. We don't know what an investigation brought up. But as far as we know, there has never been anybody on the record saying there was a connection to BK. That was just something assumed by the media. And then it got made into 20 million little other mini stories online. Even the prosecutor, Wild Bill, said there was no stalking a few times. And he looked at Edelman and he said, you know that. Yeah, even the judge's orders state no stalking. Was that in the memorandum, Heather? It would be interesting to have that in writing and display it rather than just repeating it. But I mean, we also have the video of it. So it's, and all that info, Clearing Brian, has been getting scrubbed from the web. No, he didn't. Everybody is really... But I mean, this is good for David, at least, because if he's new to the case, like we're giving him some, obviously giving him some information he didn't have. Crystalline Ghost, I like your name, says, no, he didn't ever go to the Mad Greek. That rumor is old ASF. We don't know that for sure, but you're right. There's no evidence. There's been nobody who's made any connection to the Mad Greek. But we also know they stopped talking, which is the flip side of the coin. Oh, wait, Tina Love says that was stated by the restaurant that was false. Oh, Crystalline, I stand corrected. I'll write myself a little note and I'll get the owner, because I do remember the owner came out with a really firm statement. And just kind of like to know why we're entertaining it. It's not us talking about the story. Somebody in the chat has questions about it. And I just, like, a lot of times we get really critical of people when we're in the live chat. And I'm beginning to realize so many people are new to the case. And some of the questions that come out, like, aren't people spreading conspiracy theories? They're just literally headlines they've read regarding BK. And there's so many false headlines. So it's good we have this community to do that. Okay. I definitely like hearing opposite sides so I can make sure that I have no bias in the matter. It's not easy to do so. I mean, I definitely have my biases, but when I come up with a story, I just try to think, okay, what would a guilter think about this? Or what would the argument be from a pro burger? I can't believe I'm using those words. I try to think I'm objective. What I know is I haven't seen evidence to convict. And if he did, show me. If he didn't, that's not his burden of proof. The good Jen. We have to make that distinction. Well, just David. Poor David. Hey, David, welcome to the Swamp Bros True Crime Podcast. We're very serious about the facts here. The owner of the restaurant came out and said Brian never, and he's putting that in quotes, direct quote, went to that restaurant. It wasn't vegan. They just sold veggie pizza there. That's all. And now the house is gone. Not likely they'll go there from Boise anyways, though. Good point. But I think I always tend to think they would have visited the crime scene. When this was going on, the Murdaugh trial was like in the headlines when they were talking about this, and like people were saying like that was a pivotal point in that Murdaugh trial, that other really high profile case that was going on. When they went out to the scene, it really brought everything that the prosecution was trying to tell them. It all made sense when they brought them to the scene, and I think that could work for the defense as well, but now it can't. I just want to know what Cy has to say. I mean, that wasn't for us to know about evidence. That was for us to know if what he has is going to be admissible in court. I just can't wait to hear the testimony and understand what they're talking about. Literally read it for yourself. What are we talking about? Oh, what is this? Oh, okay. So that's the quote about no stalking. I have to go off of YouTube to cancel that. To copy the thread though, if you send it to me on YouTube. Hold on one second. I'm going to turn off my camera for 1 second. No, you don't. Nobody needs to come up here and help me. I'm fine. Heather, if you send me that in Discord, I'll display it. Yes, but if you don't know something for a fact, don't state it as a fact. At least throw in IMO. That's a good point, Jen. That's a good standard for all of us in the chat. The judge and Santa said it. Yeah, David's just catching up on what's happening. And then, of course, wait. I can't pull it off a StreamYard. I like have to go onto YouTube and then find the comment and copy and paste it. But if you send it to me in Discord, I'll show. And then on the same note, I'll play the video. Never assume, I do like this comment too. Thank you, Amethyst Noir. Never assume a source. Conduct your own due diligence. 100%. I am getting to the soundbite though. So I said evidence clerk earlier. It's called the evidence custodian. Thank you, Heather. Right. Okay. It was nice of you to stop by. Thank you, Tina Love. JB says, I wonder what the probability is that the new judge lifts the gag order. All the articles I read today, they were all mainstream media articles. People are saying it's not going to get lifted. But I just, like, if we're just going to go on, like, feeling or whatever, I feel like it's going to get lifted. Like, especially if the case is going to get tried at the date they have now, I don't know. Like, keeping everything secretive and making all these motions and answering them to keep things sealed, wouldn't it be quicker if they just, I mean, obviously took the gag order off? I would think it would expedite things, is my point, if they took the gag order off. Or he might not know Rolo. Wait. Yeah, that's not all how it is supposed to go. The state is to hand over the evidence to the defense. Are you leaving, Rolo? Thank you for stopping by. I really hope he's not feeding those hamsters to snakes. I wonder if he feeds live animals to the snake. I also wonder, do you bring the snake outside? I'm stopping my camera. Not that defense needs to track it down. That's literally ass backwards, similar to prove your evidence. True that, Swan. So this is my impression, is I don't know if he would review the IGG itself, but I think he would rule on the constitutionality of whether they can hand over the genetic genealogy search, if they can hand over that family tree, so to speak. Because right now it sounds like they don't have the DNA evidence, and it's because the way that it was used initially, the IgG, not the actual sample, was something akin to like a lie detector test. They're not admissible in court. They're just used for a tip. And so they have to be a confidential informant because the people didn't opt in to have their identities given. So the judge will probably make a ruling on that. Oh, and then the reason why the good Jen is saying that is because Colleen said she thinks that the house should be, oh, sorry, I'm yawning. She thinks that the whole crime scene should be deemed inadmissible. And Jen says, considering there was a bunch of people there before the cops, I agree. Law and medical, you can open up anyone's information. What about the IgG that JJ got to see before the defense couldn't? Well, that's actually a really great question, because it kind of answers the question that we had. So it sounds like the judge can look at anything, any evidence that was presented in the case, if that's the case, because the defense hasn't even seen it. I agree, Meanie. I just always had faith in Ellie, and I didn't realize how corrupt things can actually be. I just want the right person to face the consequences for this horrible crime. I mean, it could just, corruption doesn't even have to be the issue. It could be human error. I mean, it's not just about corruption. Like, I get, because I want to have faith in Ellie too. I do know our institutions are only as good as the people who are running them, but there was hundreds of tips, no proof of stalking found as per MPD press release. Surveillance is included in stalking. So when we use the substitute term surveillance, apparently that's a form of stalking again. Yes, I would have called it surveillance, like a clever guilter. Sorry, that might have been me. No evidence of stalking, Bill Thompson. The judge will probably have more time to read and go through evidence. JJJ was the only judge in that court, wasn't he? I mean, that's a great question. I could find that out with a simple search, which I'm not going to do right now, but I will find out because it could tell us time-wise. Do judges read them though, or do they have their clerks read them and like bring all the little juicy details to them? I don't know. Too Fast says, Red Riding Hood, it's highly likely that there will be opening of the IGG. The new judge has to find any evidence against BK first. Can he find any? Oh, Robert, I hope everything's going okay with your friends, and I hope the lady is gone. My ball python eats rats. The hamster is my daughter's pet. Does he eat living rats or dead rats? I lost. I have no idea where the comment. Okay. Do you think that could all be part of a bigger cover-up? I wish a pretty girl would stalk me. Dang. Yeah. So no Nancy Drew says, Heather Fitzgerald, I've been catching up on your videos. Great stuff. I'll play a Heather video too, because I am going to play a mainstream media article. I'm just getting Heather's. This is Heather's handle. Make sure to go visit Heather's channel. And also my other managing mod who has a channel is in the chat, and that's Twizzle Stick. So make sure you visit their channels. You say that until you get a real crazy girl. Okay, so this is David, who's taken a lot of information in since his last comment. Why is my camera all glitchy? Hold on. And he says, yep, that's what I meant. Surveillance. I'm British, so cultural clash. Yeah, you probably have to. And you know what? Idaho has different stalking laws that, let me take Heather's thing down. They have different stalking laws than other places in the US. So there you go. And I really do want to get to this soundbite. I'm just going to go read a couple more comments. I don't know what this means, Meanie. Salem witch trial is, I don't know what this means. I could literally talk about the Salem witch trials for an hour. Okay, I know Judge got to see all of the evidence, including what they didn't turn over to the defense. Put yourself in that situation. I'm almost to the soundbite, you guys. Just bear with me. As long as we live in a bubble of denial, they will keep getting away with this shit. Yes, so confusing. The prosecution knows the effect they will have on the public by announcing that BK didn't stalk the victims. They wouldn't make this statement on a technicality. I like JB's statement. It's kind of like playing off what I was saying about the surveillance that Heather has just said, okay, well, that's included in stalking. But just to repeat her statement, the prosecution knows exactly the effect that they will have on the public by announcing BK didn't stalk the victims. It's not in their favor. And they wouldn't make that statement on a technicality. So if he was just surveilling, and so that's a good point. That it's so detrimental to their case. They wouldn't have said it unless they had to. JJJ's whole job was to help stall the case. I think it worked. And about the surveillance, Heather Fitzgerald says literally the application parts, the Idaho stalking statute. Oh my gosh, thank you. Mimi says this might be one of the most informative lives ever. I'm like gonna cry. I'm just kidding, but seriously. Thank you. I appreciate that because I really was leaning on AR's expertise for this live stream tonight, so I appreciate that a lot. Wait, hold on. Hence, a republic eliminates a mob rule in government. The problem is they can create something much worse, which are tyrants. The experiment by leaving all the power locally to the colonies with instructions from, well, they had a judicial system that was determined by England. And they had people who were supposed to oversee it. But once they signed it off to the local powers, like, I don't want to get into it. Like I said, if I start talking about the Salem witch trials, it's not like you can say part of what happened. You have to like explain it in its totality. But just remember Benjamin Franklin, when he was in Philadelphia and they were constructing the Constitution, he actually met with the evil pastor that was behind all of this. He knew him. He was from Boston when he was a kid. He knew all of that stuff, and he brought all of that to Philly with him when they were writing the Constitution. And it stalled a lot of it because they had to do something. Now they wanted to have a contained federal, a contained federal government and keep it small, but they had to do something about allotting people to have. They had to do something to keep the separation of church and state. And that wasn't necessarily to keep the church out of the state. It was to keep the state out of the church. So I'll stop there. They were not exonerated until a few years ago. Sarah Good and Ichabod and the other so-called witches. It's horrifying. It was a power grab. So like I am going to tell you this. So people always say, oh, we don't know what happened in the Salem witch trials. That is complete BS. We know exactly what happened. It is not, although I do have my thoughts on like evil and the demonic and everything that was going on there. That's not what was going on. There was a psychopath involved. I mean, I figured out who the psychopath in it was, but basically what happened, they tell you that there aren't a lot of documents on it, but what you have to do is read the documents that are in the Peabody Historical Society. Because if you read the church documents, they plainly state how the argument started and how it evolved. So they hired a new pastor who was super corrupt. He went to Harvard, but he dropped out and became a merchant. And while he was down in the Caribbean, he somehow acquired a second young daughter who they claim was his niece. He also incurred, I'm not going to say the word, but he took on an indentured servant, brought them back, and he was so corrupt when he became the pastor of the church, because remember, he was a merchant. He was trying to be a lawyer. So now his new thing was to become a pastor and have them pay for his lifestyle. He became a pastor and he immediately started demanding more money. And that was in the form of goods, like things that would have been worth money back then, like firewood and flour and things like that. And he started making these demands, and he ended up pairing with another person with power. And you can see the situation escalating until they found their first victim to scare everyone with. And then, yeah, so anyway, I'll stop there. But that is amazing that it's taken this long for them to actually exonerate the people involved. It was horrible. Like the first victim, she had a 4-year-old daughter who they incarcerated for years. And when they finally got her out, she never talked again for the rest of her life. It's just that humans could do what they did. Okay. No, you can get vegan crap anywhere, and Mad Greaves sucks. The Good Jen says, criminal confidential, that's what sucks. They live by a completely different set of rules than we ever, and we will never understand. The owner said, absolutely not. I'm going to have to get the actual statement. And Heather did send it to me. So, oh, hold on. It's in my Discord. Let's just make sure we're stopping this right now. Okay, I'm just pulling up Heather's. Okay, here it is. So this is the court documents about stalking. So this isn't just the Mad Greek part, but we'll bring that up too. I think that's it. All right, so this is the first page. Non-consensual contact means any contact with the victim that is initiated or continued with the victim's without the victim's consent, and that is beyond the scope of the consent provided by the victim. I'll try and read a little bit faster. Or that is in the disregard of the victim's oppressed desire that the contact be avoided or discontinued. Non-consensual contact includes, but is not limited to, following the victims or maintaining surveillance, including by electronic means, on the victim. So this is the definition of the Idaho statute definition of stalking. So I right there says surveillance would be part of that. Contacting the victims in a public place or on private property. So that would include the Mad Greek. Appearing at a workplace or residence of the victim, Mad Greek. Entering into or remaining on the property owned or leased or occupied by the victim. Contacting the victim by phone or causing the victim's telephone to ring repeatedly or continuously, regardless of whether a conversation ensues. Sending an email or electronic communication to the victim, or placing an object in or delivering an object to the property owned, leased, or occupied by the victim. Victim, quote unquote, means person who is the target of course of conduct. Stalking in the second degree is punishable by imprisonment in the county jail for no more than 1 year, or by a fine of no more than $1,000, or both such fines of imprisonment. I'm going to read you page 2. Oh, she sent me so much. All right, next page. stalking in the second degree, a person who commits this crime of stalking in the second degree, if a person is knowingly and maliciously engages in the course of conduct that seriously alarms, annoys, or harasses the victim, and is such as would cause a reasonable person to substantially. I'm so sorry, I'm reading like a freaking robot. Would cause a reasonable person to substantially emotional distress, or engages in a course of conduct such as would cause a reasonable person to be in fear of death or physical injury, or in fear of death or physical injury of a family member or household member. Course of conduct means repeated acts of non-consensual contact involving the victims or a family member or household member of the victim, provided, however, that the constitutionality protected activity is not included within the meaning of this definition. And there's two more. I'm not trying to like get super sidetracked. I think this is worth us making sure we all understand or are on the same page. And then we're going to get to the soundbite from Twiz. On this one, under 5, it says section 18-4015, assault with an intent to murder. In this section, course of conduct and victims have meeting. So I don't know where we're at with this. Oh, wait, here we go. Stalking in the first degree is a felony punishable by a fine not exceeding $10,000 or imprisonment in a state prison for no less than 1 year. Nor no more than 5 years, or both such fine and imprisonment. All right, so I'm just going to take a moment. I'm going to pull up that soundbite, and the reason I want to do that is because I actually want to, while that's playing, kind of go through these comments and see if I can star a couple to get back to, because I'm so far behind. So give me a second while I find that. I'm going to turn my camera off while I look for that, you guys. I'm sorry. This is weird. Oh, here it is. Okay. So this is from 2 days ago. I'm hoping this is, I think I've seen this soundbite before. Let me show this to you.
On a motion to change venue from Latah County to Ada County, filed by the defense.
The trial of Brian Kohberger, the man accused of murdering 4 college students in Idaho, will be moved to a different county. This is a very big deal. We are going to do a full breakdown of why the judge decided to grant the defense's motion to change venue and whether this will help the defense or the prosecution. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. The trial for accused quadruple murderer Brian Kohberger has been moved to a different venue. That's right, no longer will it be in Latah County where the killings took place. This is a major, major development. I'm going to lay out why this happened, what the impact could be, and who does this benefit, the prosecution or the defense? Now, Brian Kohberger, of course, is the former Washington State University grad student who was arrested and charged with the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. They were brutally stabbed to death in an off-campus rental home in Moscow, Idaho, back on November 13th, 2022. Madison Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin. And by the way, Kohberger is also charged with burglary for allegedly breaking in and committing these crimes as well. Now, Kohberger, he was arrested 6 weeks after the killings, and authorities connected him through a mountain of evidence. And one of the main issues has been, will this trial happen in Latah County? You see, the challenge, of course, with this case is the fact that you know about it, that you're watching it, the notoriety of this case. And as the court notes, it's not just the recognition of the case that's the problem, but how extensive the media coverage has been, particularly negative information about Bryan Kohberger, rumors, false information. There's TV shows, there's documentaries, there's a book. This can all prejudice a potential jury. That's what we're talking about. Now, the prosecution doesn't really deny this. They acknowledge that this is a very high-profile case, but they had argued that this trial should not be moved out of Latah County, that what you have to do is choose from a larger jury pool, submit an extensive juror questionnaire, that you conduct a thorough voir dire or jury selection process to whittle down potential jurors to get to 18, that's going to be sufficient to get a fair and impartial jury in Latah County. The defense disagreed. They argued that won't work, that the trial needs to be moved to a different venue, a larger population away from where these killings took place. And in the end, the judge, Latah County Magistrate Judge John Judge, yes, that's his name, Judge John Judge, sided with the defense and granted their motion for a change of venue. Very big development in this case. Judge John Judge wrote in his order, quote, "The court has spent many months carefully considering the legal and logistical concerns with a trial of this length and magnitude, carefully reading each submission, listening to each expert, and evaluating each party's position. Based upon the totality of the factors, defendant's motion for change of venue is granted." So, what are those factors, right? Well, it is clear the judge was persuaded by a number of defense experts who testified at an August 29th hearing. So, for example, there was James Todd Murphy, the president of TrueScope North America that provides media monitoring services.
36% of that coverage, or just over 36% of that, was seen or had the opportunity to be seen in Latah County. On the right side, you have another pie chart that shows the population of Idaho, and it shows what percentage Latah County represents of the total percentage of Idaho, which is 2.75%.
So as the court explains in its order granting this motion, Murphy's main takeaway was that of the media coverage of Kohberger's case in the state of Idaho, 36% of that coverage is within Latah County. And when you look at Ada County, which the defense has asked this case to be moved to, and Boise is a part of Ada County, 34% of the media coverage is in Ada. Now, you might be saying 36%, 34%, that's pretty comparable, right? Here is the problem. Latah has a population of around 41,000. Ada has over 518,000. So as the judge writes, according to Murphy, this means that the media coverage in Ada County is much more diluted, while Latah County is saturated with such coverage. Stated differently, media coverage in Latah County offered twice as many opportunities to be seen per person than in Ada County. The higher volume of coverage in Latah County, coupled with the smaller pool of eligible jurors, means people in Latah County had twice as many chances to be exposed to this case versus those residing in Ada County. One little side note, by the way, I mentioned the total populations of these counties. Not every single person in that population can be an eligible juror for a variety of reasons. So even if you have 41,000 people, it might only be 25,000 people that could be eligible jurors. So that really becomes an important factor as well. Hey, by the way, we really, really appreciate you guys. And one of the things that we like to do is share with you the great benefits from our sponsors, because they offer services and products that may really help you out. And that includes Odoo. So focusing on and really taking to heart, We heard from Dr. Amani El Alali, a social psychologist and social cognition researcher who analyzes how publicity about a case can shape.
I just want to stop for a second. Like, I think that her testimony was so powerful. And if you haven't heard it, she did the first half of the testimony. So before they went to break. So if you do have a chance and you hadn't heard her testimony in the hearing, for me, it really solidified what Edelman found in the numbers. It really, sorry, I got a message in Discord. I will answer you in a second, Robert. Anyway, I encourage you to watch her testimony if you haven't, because it'll show you how in these studies that she's conducted, they can prove the probability of bias. And it's not just like an opinion or in her own artistic way. Like, it's something that you could have one of your peers repeat the study and get the same results. So really interesting testimony. I wanted to stop and give that side note before we hear about her.
Potential jurors' attitudes.
Fact that if you get exposed to publicity, you're more likely to render a judgment of guilt and less likely to, or have lower liking for the defendant and have higher ratings of their criminality.
So the doctor's conclusion here was that the more a case is publicized, the more likely potential jurors will dislike the defendant and believe that the defendant is guilty. According to the doctor, Latah County residents have been exposed to so much publicity about this case that they subconsciously are biased against Bryan Kohberger, even if they don't think they are. Why? First, officials in the county, who the doctor says that residents are more likely to trust, have spoken about Bryan Kohberger's guilt in absolute terms. So, for example, quote, the former Moscow Police Department chief, James Fry, who was the police chief during the investigation into the homicides, publicly declared he had no doubts that the right guy had been arrested for the crimes. Second, there has been so much negative publicity about Kohberger that Latah residents will associate him with terms that have been amplified, like murder. Evil, killer, stalker. Now, again, this happens all the time in a million cases, right? It's not like every time a killing like this happens that the case has to be moved to a different venue. But the size of this population, the tight-knit community, that's what's key here. And that leads me to the third point brought up by the doctor. And this is a really important one that the court seemed to side with and brings up. The pressure on those in the community to find Bryan Kohberger guilty. That makes sense, right? The man accused of brutally killing 4 innocent young people to death. Wouldn't it be hard for these residents, these neighbors, these community members to acquit him? The order reads, quote, Latah County is a small, close-knit community. Community members feel a sense of loyalty to community views and fellow community members. For example, Latah County jurors may feel an inner clash or conflict if they felt the state had not proven Kohberger's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, because they may feel voting not guilty would cause community outrage or once again cause fear within the community. Thus, the inner clash may cause jurors to vote guilty even when they believe there is reasonable doubt as to guilt. The fourth point brought up by this doctor, and this is something the prosecution had highlighted in a different way, because the prosecution had said, look, the residents of this community, they should decide this case because of their attachment to it. But the doctor highlighted that this community is emotionally invested in this case, that they are affected by it. After all, the doctor explains that when Kohberger was arrested, there was a sense of relief in the community that the danger was over, that the guy was caught. In other words, there is already a belief in this community that Kohberger is guilty. So all in all, according to this doctor, it is impossible for Latah residents to be impartial. Then we have the testimony of Dr. Brian Edelman, a social psychologist and trial consultant that conducted pretrial surveys regarding the Brian Kohberger case.
Case like this, you're talking about inundated with pretrial publicity over a significant amount of time, repeating information, and then new information that's sensational. And so it's constantly reactivating those memories and making those knowledge structures more accessible, both consciously and unconsciously.
So according to his surveys, 98% of survey respondents in Latah County recognize the Brian Kohberger case, 98%. And out of that number, a whopping 67% stated that they believe Brian Kohberger is guilty. Now, 51% said Kohberger would have a very difficult time convincing them that he's not guilty. And by the way, that number was higher than all of the other counties polled. So taking all of that testimony into consideration, how did the judge make his decision? Well, let's talk a little bit of the law and what the standard is. Under Idaho law, in order to protect a defendant's right to a fair trial by an impartial jury, there's a constitutional right to that. A case can be transferred to another venue if the trial court determines that pretrial publicity will result in a trial that is not fundamentally fair. And one of the ways that you can show this, and as Judge will explain, is through presumed prejudice, meaning there is such adverse pretrial publicity that it creates a presumption of prejudice that is so strong that you can't overcome it, that you can't believe it when jurors say they can be impartial. So here, as the court explains, and as we heard from the testimony, Latah County is small. There is extensive media coverage with a high probability that people will be exposed to the case in Latah. That includes a voluminous amount of
I thought he was going to, I wanted him to finish his thought. I thought he was going to bring up more things, but I want to bring up one point and pause and elaborate on what he's saying. So the reason they have change of venue is to uphold people's constitutional rights, to make sure people get a fair trial. But one of the best quotes I've seen since we talked about the venue change actually being granted, and I don't remember where I read it, but it was basically along the lines of, the reason they have the rule is for situations like this. This is the exception to the rule. This is the case that is super high profile, that grabs the media attention from around the world. So if you're going to have a change of venue, if it's not granted in a case like this, then what, I don't know what's going on, then what would be the circumstances?
Negative coverage of Brian Kohberger, the defendant, that there are innate biases and fears and conflicts and personal connections to the case, that there's high emotions in Latah County, and you have these problematic results of the surveys. But the court did not end there. There is one other consideration that we have not talked about yet: logistics. So in the judge's order, it reads, quote, "Even without a finding of presumed prejudice, venue in this case must be changed for the convenience of parties and witnesses and in the interest of justice." So the court explains that the Latah County Sheriff's Office doesn't have the manpower to ensure the safety and security of the parties, the witnesses, the victims, the families, the jurors, that there are not enough court clerks to manage the jury selection process, especially if there are potentially a jury pool of 6,000 people. The courthouse, it doesn't have enough space for the jurors and the safe transport of witnesses. In addition,
that brings up another point when we talk about like how quickly they can review this case so that they can actually have hearings on it. They have so many more clerks there who actually, I think we were talking about this early, who actually do the reading and reviewing for the judges. And so the manpower alone. And then when they talk about saturation in the jury pool, there was definitely very similar statistics for certain things in Ada County. But the point is that the percentage of people that haven't been exposed is so much greater. It's like, I want to say it's like 20 times as large. I'm just trying to pause the video where I can and not just play the whole thing through.
Additionally, a massive trial like this will affect the day-to-day operations at the courthouse too. And I will tell you one of the things, if you know how amplified this trial is and how high profile it is, you're going to have a lot of people, a lot of reporters that need to come there. Where are they going to be housed? Where are they going to stay? It's complicated. And I'll tell you one of the other things that came up during the course of this conversation is we have to remember that this is in a college town. And one of the reasons that this has been delayed for so long is they wanted to schedule this trial when there was no semester, when semester was in recess. So moving it out of this jurisdiction, moving it away from the people who were affected by this case and the students who were affected by this case, it can also make sense as well. And in the judge's order, it says, quote, while traveling to another county for 3 months is indeed inconvenient for the attorneys, the court, some family members of the victims, and some witnesses, having the trial at the Latah County Courthouse would also be inconvenient in numerous ways, and beyond that, would present serious safety risks. Thus, the interest of justice requires that the trial be moved to a venue with the resources, both in terms of personnel and space, necessary to effectively and efficiently handle a trial of this magnitude and length so that the parties and the court can focus on the case and not on peripheral issues. And for all of that, the judge granted the motion for change of venue. Now, is this surprising? Well, this is a judge who has made a concerted effort to ensure that Bryan Kohberger's right to a fair trial is not impacted. Obviously, that's important in every case. Here, it's heightened, though, because of just how high profile this case is, and it's arguably the biggest case that Judge has ever handled, or that.
I just had another thought I wanted to bring up to you guys. So we know that, or we don't know. So it's rumored this judge is very strict in his sentencing. And we had this long, when all of these motions to strike the DP came out recently at the beginning of the month. We were talking about aggravating circumstances and having different things removed from BK's charges so he wouldn't face the death penalty. And just seeing that picture of Judge John Judge, for whatever you think, we're talking about somebody who he was always had a smile on his face. He was, giggling all the time. Sometimes when we're talking about it was inappropriate. What I'm getting at is this new judge, we talk about all the benefits to the case, but the judge itself, and again, only if BK is found guilty, but would the sentencing be greater? Or I'm sorry, that's not the point I'm trying to make. Let me rephrase this. With all those those motions to strike the death penalty, would Judge John Judge have looked at those with more consideration than this judge who is very strict with his sentencing? I don't know. I'm just a thought. If you want to drop your opinion in the chat below.
Maybe Latah County has ever seen. So there is a need to get this right. But when I say that the judge has made a concerted effort to protect the integrity of this case and the defendant's rights, as Judge points out in his ruling, there was a non-dissemination or gag order that was put in place. Cameras were removed from the courtroom, and the proceedings have only been streamed through the court's YouTube channel, which for anybody who's watched these hearings knows it's not the most ideal visual medium or angles that we see. But again, that happened because the camera beforehand was apparently focusing too much on Bryan Kohberger, and there was a concern that that visual would be prejudicial to him. So the bottom line is, if Judge is doing everything he can to ensure that Kohberger's rights are protected, changing venue makes sense. And while changes of venue motions happen all the time in cases all across this country, the Bryan Kohberger case is a unique one. Now, on the other hand, he did seem to indicate he didn't want to delay this case any further. And while he had previously set a trial date of June 2025, will this change of venue delay that in any way? This order makes clear we don't know what venue will be chosen or which judge will preside over the case or when these decisions will happen. That's going to be left at the discretion of the Idaho Supreme Court. And by the way, if this does go to another venue and goes to another judge, won't the judge need a little bit of time to get caught up on everything that's happening too? Will this delay the case? And in that part, it's frustrating. It's frustrating particularly and especially for the victims' families. In fact, the Gonsalves family released a statement after the judge granted this motion for a change of venue, and I'd like to read it for you right now. It says, quote, "The family is incredibly disappointed in the judge's ruling granting the change of venue. The only good thing about this decision is it will be Judge's last decision in this case. The family has always felt that Judge favored the defense, and it was a common theme that whatever the defense wanted, the defense got. The written decision is even more informative. If the judge knew Latah County could not handle this trial for safety reasons, not enough court clerks, logistics, and lacking space, why did we waste over a year in a county he knew was not going to handle the trial? The points he mentioned didn't all of a sudden jump up and bite him in the rear. Another issue was the poor cross-examination by the state of the defense expert witnesses. A judge can only rely on the evidence presented, and when you don't properly cross-examine expert witnesses or present any of your own, you are left relying on the opinions of the defense. Then, let's not forget the massive contradiction of having a University of Idaho employee as an expert witness, and at the same time allowing Scott Green, the University of Idaho president, to write a book claiming to be an integral part of your investigation. Finally, what was the point of non-dissemination order, private hearings, closed-door tactics, allowing the defendant to be dressed in a suit for every televised hearing, if not to keep the trial in Latah County? As victims' families, you are left to just watch like everyone else, and really you have little rights or say in the process, and at the same time, you are most vested in the outcome. We have always felt that a fair and impartial jury could be found in Latah County, and still believe that is where the trial deserves to be held to help the community heal. Thank you again for all of your support and prayers." And that makes sense, right? Even if you think 25,000 people in Latah County were eligible, you couldn't find 18 that were impartial, but you also heard all of the logistical reasons as well. And look, they make some very, very valid points. Look, on one hand, they want a quick resolution of this case. They don't really care about Brian Kohberger and his rights. It seems to me that the family makes a strong argument that, well, what about the logistical and practical considerations that the court mentioned, like staffing and space and security? You knew about this from the start. That seems pretty fair. It seems the court knew this from the beginning. They didn't have to wait to decide if there was a compelling reason to move the venue.
I'm going to finish this one.
On the other hand, from a legal point of view, let's talk about this. Under the Idaho rules, a judge may change venue only upon motion by any party. So the rules seem to indicate that he couldn't unilaterally just change this. And it wasn't until January 30th, 2024 that Brian Kohberger, his team, moved to change venue. And then the state objected, and then the hearing didn't happen until last month. Look, the defendant has rights. And there does need to be a proper hearing on a change of venue with witness testimony. And a lot of the testimony was based on studies that needed time to be compiled. There's a process. It's a frustrating reality, but there is a legal process. It takes time. We have hearings. This is one of the reasons why trials don't happen for years from when the commission of the crime happened. But of course, the family's frustration, 100% completely understandable. Now, I do want to highlight one final point, and this is my take.
Okay, before he highlights his one final point, I wanted to bring up this relevant comment by Jen. And by the way, I've been going through and starring comments during this, and I'm going to get back to them. You guys have some awesome things to say that we definitely should talk about. It's a small detail, but maybe not. Having cases got thrown out for stupid reasons like this. What comes to my mind that I'll tell you, the only coverage I've really seen on this, I believe, is from Unfiltered Lucky's channel, but I wasn't following it until it happened. But if you heard about the Rust trial, the Rust movie set, in that case, they had bullets that weren't, that the prosecution had been given when they collected evidence, but did not turn them over to the defense. And the reasoning behind it was because the lead prosecutor thought that they were irrelevant. And when this came to light, a co prosecutor, I guess, or another attorney on the prosecution actually resigned from the case and said, no, basically you are supposed to hand over all the evidence, whether you think it's exculpatory or not. It's not for you to decide. It's for you to hand over to the defense and let them decide. The entire case got thrown out over that. And that was such a high profile case that cost their community so much money. And yeah, so I think the answer is yes. All right, so let's get back. Sidebar is making his final point. And then I do think I found the interview with the G's that we were originally looking for. So we'll watch that next. I don't see myself going to bed any time soon.
Who does this benefit? Well, taking the defense's experts at their word, listening to the defense's arguments, clearly getting the trial moved is a win for them, right? Potentially larger jury pool that hasn't been inundated with negative coverage of the case, they're removed from the area where this happened, less chance that they hold prejudicial views of Bryan Kohberger. Obviously, that's a benefit to Bryan Kohberger to get a fair and impartial jury. Okay. I will say, though, in my opinion, this is actually better news for the prosecution in the long run. Why? The evidence in this case, I think would be fair to say, is quite strong against Bryan Kohberger. That evidence doesn't change if you go to LATA or you go to ADA. From the DNA to the surveillance footage to the cell phone data to the potential eyewitness, you can make the argument that it would be sufficient to convict him no matter where the trial is if you can seat a fair and impartial jury. Now, of course, he's presumed innocent. He has a right to defend himself, but you can see how Bryan Kohberger could be convicted based on this evidence if there are no issues of its admission into trial. It's strong evidence. Whether we ask someone from California to New York, people across this country have been talking about this evidence and saying they believe Bryan Kohberger did this, that he's guilty. Now, barring, of course, particularities in certain court rules, the evidence really doesn't change whether you have this in ADA, whether you have this in LATA. People's conclusions about the evidence doesn't change. So, for prosecutors, if the name of the game is seeking a conviction that won't be overturned on appeal, in my view, it is better for them to win a conviction in another venue in this case, because then it would be incredibly difficult for the defense to say their client wasn't treated fairly and didn't have a fair and impartial jury. They got this change of venue. If Bryan Kohberger was convicted in Latah County, given everything that we just laid out, the defense could have legitimate grounds to say that the trial should have been moved and his should have been moved and his conviction overturned. But with a change of venue and conviction, advantage prosecution. And thinking of the families, you know what would be really bad for them? If Bryan Kohberger was convicted after a long, exhaustive, painful, taxing trial, and for his conviction to be overturned because he mounted an argument that he never got a fair and impartial jury and that this case should have been moved. Having to relive this trial again for a second time, that can be very tough. That would be an incredibly emotionally taxing blow to the families who are seeking finality here. And I say this all the time, but both sides should want to make sure defendants' rights are as protected as possible. If you believe that someone is guilty and you want justice, you want to make sure that the defendant's rights are not violated in any way because you want a clean conviction. So let's see where the Idaho Supreme Court decides to move this, and that will be the next step in what has been a very long and arduous process. That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.
Oh, I'm muted. I'm sorry. What I was telling you while I was muted is I found the interview that Twiz was talking about. So just to set this up, it's the same channel, so I'm going to leave this banner up. But this is the most recent interview from the Gonzalez family, which as far as I know is the only family that spoke out on the venue change so far. So this will be really interesting. I haven't seen this yet, so this will be my first time and you'll hear my honest reaction. So we'll pull that up and then I'll get to all of your starred comments because you guys have some really good thoughts on all of this.
To publicity, you're more likely to render a judgment of guilt.
It's time to like put your foot down and say, okay, the way you've been doing it isn't working. I'm not going to risk my daughter's life over, you guys playing little games of not cross-examining and not doing the extra mile.
A bombshell ruling in the Brian Kohberger case. The judge not only deciding the case will be moved out of Moscow, Idaho, but also the judge indicating he wants off the case altogether. I'll break it down and get reaction from one of the victims' families in this special News Nation and long crime collaboration of Enton Across America. Hey everybody, this is Brian. I'm actually doing this podcast from the airport. Sorry if it's a little noisy. There's some background music playing, but I wanted to get this on with the developments with Idaho. I was actually in Idaho recently. Now I'm flying out. I'm going to Pennsylvania. I've been working on an Ellen Greenberg story. If you don't know that one, you can go back and see I did a podcast on that. I'll have developments on that case soon. But I wanted to go over the latest developments with Idaho because there's a significant development when it comes to the change of venue. The judge in Idaho, in Moscow, Idaho, Judge is his name, has granted the change of venue. So the Brian Kohberger trial will be leaving Moscow, Idaho. We'll be going somewhere else in the state. Where exactly, we don't know. I want to read part of Judge's ruling. It says, considering the undisputed evidence presented by the defense, the extreme nature of the news coverage in this case, and the smaller population in Latah County, the defense has met the rather low standard of demonstrating a reasonable likelihood that prejudicial news coverage will compromise a fair trial in Latah County. Thus, the court will grant Kohberger's motion to change venue for presumed prejudice. And in the judge's order, he goes over the reasons for his decision. He talks about the defense witnesses. You remember they had this big hearing where the defense argued for a change of venue. He talks about the witnesses who testified that media coverage was spread out across Latah County, that many of the potential jurors that were surveyed via telephone knew about the case. He also talks about just how small the jury pool is in Moscow, Idaho. It's a small college town. And what was interesting is much of his decision based on his filing was because of how small the police departments and law enforcement agencies and court personnel agencies are in Moscow, Idaho. He talked a lot about how the sheriff's department is a small department, which I've seen. I mean, every time you go to the hearings in Moscow, Idaho, and I've been to most of them, it's the same sheriff's deputies. There's just a handful of them that control the courtroom. It's a small courtroom. It's a very, very small courthouse. Again, it's a small sheriff's department. It's a small police department, Moscow Police Department. And the court clerk's office is very, very small. So he said that they just wouldn't be able to handle it in a small county like Latah County. He made reference that, if there was another big law enforcement event God forbid, a mass shooting or a major car wreck or something like that, that they would be spread just too thin with a trial of this magnitude also happening in Moscow. So that seemed to really play into his reasoning, and now the trial will be moved. What's interesting, and I want to read you the last part of his ruling, he said, Koberger's motion to change venue is granted pursuant to Idaho Criminal Rule 21A and 21B, consistent with the language of Idaho Criminal Rule 21C 2B. This court orders a transfer of venue without specifying the new place of venue and refers the case to the administrative director of the courts for assignment by the Supreme Court to a court of proper venue in another judicial district and assignment of a specific judge to preside in the criminal proceeding. Now, that part, I know it sounds kind of wordy, but I'll explain it to you. That part really surprised me. I mean, I was sort of expecting that there would be a change of venue. But what he's saying there is that he also is getting off of the case. So Judge will no longer be presiding over the Bryan Kohberger case, and it will now be up to the Supreme Court to decide not only where the case moves, but also who the judge is. So we're going to see a whole new judge, and we're going to see a whole new location. Where that is, we don't know. Could it be one of the counties near Moscow, Idaho, one of the surrounding counties around Latah County? That's possible. Could also be Ada County, which is about 5 hours or so from Moscow. That's Boise, Idaho, which would in some ways make sense and solve some of the problems that the judge talked about in his motion. It's a big county. It's a big courthouse. It's where Lori Vallow's trial was, you might remember, a big judicial complex. They've got big courtrooms. They've got plenty of courtroom personnel. They've got a secret underground entrance for jurors and for defendants. So that could be a possibility that the case does end up getting moved.
I just want to pause to let you know what's coming up. So in just another moment, the whole reason we're watching this is because this is the latest interview with the G family, but this is just the introduction that Brian Entin is giving. I was just checking on the video. It literally starts in the next minute. So just for those who started tuning in, because I know we had a few other people click in while we were watching this, this is the latest interview from the Gs. And I'm going to stop talking.
Moved to Boise. We're just gonna have to wait and see on the timeline. But the Supreme Court hopefully will make a decision soon because there's all sorts of deadlines coming up that Judge had set. Whether those deadlines will stick, we don't know, because now there's going to be a new judge and a new venue. I spoke to Kaylee Gonzalez. She's, of course, one of the victims. I spoke to her family about this decision. I was in the studio last night and spoke to them. Take a look.
Let me start with you, Steve and Christy. What was your reaction to this ruling from the judge that there will be a change of venue, and then also that he is no longer going to be on the case?
So I actually heard those separately. They didn't come together for me. Somehow I got that the venue was going to be changed, but no location had been decided, or that the Supreme Court would be deciding that. So that was a little like, okay, disappointed. And then shortly after, I heard about the judge. So I was on the phone with Steve saying, have you talked to Shannon? And he's like, I just got off the phone with Shannon now, so I'll call you back. So, they kind of had a discussion with Olivia and Steve and Shannon. And then he kind of called me back, and I was kind of losing my mind a bit, like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the end. We're losing control. But he kind of, after he got me in on their discussion, I think that it's all for the best, and there's a silver lining. I think, getting rid of, we still don't know what county, so that still could be Nez Perce, could possibly be Kootenai County. And I think that, I think the judge was in over his head, and I think getting a judge in that's way more decisive with a heavier hand and ready to hit the ground running might be exactly what we need. Hopefully it doesn't delay things and we could just go.
Steve, were you, I was reading through your statement. I mean, have you been frustrated with the prosecution? Because I was at the last hearing when they had the change of venue hearing, and, it does seem like the prosecution doesn't always push back a lot on some of these, defense witnesses and defense arguments?
Yeah, we are a family of action. We are get-her-dones, put the foot down to the metal and go. We went and hired Shannon. Thank God we have legal counsel, because if there's ever been a case where you need somebody that you trust and somebody you can work with, it's been him. Any family that goes through some tragedy like this, I highly recommend you find somebody that you trust, that really knows the ins and outs of that courtroom. So we hit the ground first and we said, you got to be more aggressive. You guys have to be more aggressive. And they pushed back at us. And here we are 2 months away from 2 years and the resetting. So we were right. We told them they needed to be a little more aggressive, maybe a lot more aggressive, somewhere in the middle. And, here we are today, and we were right. But we can course correct. We can get this fixed. We can get the right guy in the right chair, and we can go from there. And I totally have belief in the Idaho Supreme Court. I know that they're going to pick somebody that they trust, somebody that they're already going to be well known about his cases and his work history. So everything that he puts down, it's not going to be questioned, because they're not going to pick somebody with a questionable past. So that'll be the best.
Do you know, Shannon, I was looking over some of the deadlines in the case. I think there's a November 7th deadline, a hearing for the death penalty issue that came, the defense fighting the death penalty. So will it be a whole new judge now in a whole new courtroom for everything moving forward?
Well, as soon as they change the venue, they pick the select and they tell us what county it's going to be in, I'm assuming that assignment will include a judge who will be presiding over the case. Obviously, all of the current decisions that have been made on the case, he can either stick with or go back. Normally, they stick with the decisions that have been made, and then anything moving forward. So all of these motions that have been filed.
Okay, this is really, really insightful. So I'm so glad that Twiz recommended this. Soundbite, and there's Twiz's handle. Please go visit his channel. But so just to reiterate what he just said, if you didn't hear it, we were talking what would happen. Could this judge go back and remove any of the other decisions that the judge made? And that's what is Shannon Gray. This is what Shannon Gray is saying. You can. I'm just going to go back 30 seconds so we can hear it again, because it is really important, I think.
On the case, he can either stick with or go back. Normally, they stick with the decisions that have been made, and then anything moving forward. So all of these motions that have been filed regarding the death penalty and some of the other aggravating factors, those will be decisions that this judge makes on the case. And so, we're hopeful that will be either in Kootenai County or Nez Perce, because they're closer locations, and there's competent judges that can handle these types of cases and just get this thing going. So,
and I know how hard it is, Christy and Steve, when you guys have to go to the hearings and kind of get the lay of the land there and get to know the people. And I'm just thinking you will have to, I guess, sort of reacclimate to a whole new process.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of, the way you see Kohberger and where you sit. You've kind of gotten a little bit used to where you're at, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're prepared for that. We were just talking about that earlier. We'll have to kind of retouch with this community, whatever community it is, and get to know this community as well. And hopefully we have the support and the love that we do from Latah County, which, I don't see why we wouldn't. And just depend on that community to support us. And like you said, learn the lay of the land and the courtroom. And, that will take a bit. But hopefully he'll be in orange next time we see him. And he won't be in his fancy suit anymore.
I'm going to pause there because I need the chat to get in with me on this, because we learned this in other live streams, and I absolutely would love for anyone to correct me if I'm wrong, but that is, as far as I know, that's Brian's right to dress in that suit for hearing. And as long as his team, the defense, requests that and provides it for him, that he does have that right to wear that suit. But this is the second time, and Christy very Christy Gonzalez very well could be right. I should, I'm not trying to contradict somebody closer to the case, but it's the second time she's gone on an interview in the last couple of weeks and said this same thing, that was a privilege for him to wear the suit and not a right. So I'm confused, because if she got it wrong in that other interview that she did, why would she be repeating it in this one? And again, this isn't meant to be offensive to the victims' families, but we have questioned who is advising them before. So I wonder, is this another time where somebody could have, is she right, or is this somebody not giving good advice when they should be? I don't know what's going on. I'd love to hear what you think of the chat. That stood out to me because we went over this in the last Gonzalez interview, because it was a similar statement. And while I'm on that, I just want to say something that I observed nice about the victim's family. They both look like Christy. I love Christy's hair, and she looks like she's
Well, yeah, they made such a big deal, Steve, of having him in the suit. I think the assumption was because it was going to be in that community.
Yeah, there was a strategy that we were somewhat made aware of, no promises or anything along those lines, but there was a strategy. We didn't necessarily agree with it, but you trust, you put your trust in the people that have been in that room. And then when it just backfires, it's time to like put your foot down and say, okay, the way you've been doing it isn't working. I'm not going to risk my daughter's life over, you guys playing little games of not cross-examining and not doing the extra mile. If the other side's going to be working till the very end, till an hour left of the courtroom, then you know what? You talk until the end, and then we do it again. We don't give up. We don't quit. We don't take the easy way road out. And I kind of felt like we were being out hustled sometimes. And, that needs to end, especially once we get to trial time.
Were you surprised, Shannon, that the judge wants off the case? Like, I guess, I don't know. I felt like he was kind of invested, like when I went to the hearings. Maybe I had the wrong, perception.
I think I was more surprised by the things that were mentioned in the order, how, deficient Latah County was in handling this type of case. And, a list of all of the things, the court clerks, the staff, the security, all the expenses, the privacy, the rooms that could be provided for the defense and the prosecution. And I was more surprised at that and how strong of a basis he used that in his order to grant the motion to change venue. And, these aren't issues that just happened yesterday. They've existed since the beginning of this case. And so I was surprised that was really a strong basis for the change of venue, was the deficiencies in Latah County, that he thought that it could not handle a case of this size and this type of publicity. And I think the family feels like if that was his belief from the beginning, well, we should have jumped off the horse a lot earlier, and got this going in a direction that's not as delay oriented. So
there are also those issues that you talk about, that he talked so much about in the ruling, are not really issues that came up much at the hearing. Like, nope. That wasn't a big part of the argument, but then it was a big part of his ruling.
Well, and the other thing, Steve and Christy and I have talked about it, is the missed opportunities for the cross-examine of the witnesses. A judge has to base his decisions on what's presented in front of him. And if you only present one side, that's what he has to believe. If I say that, that over there is a green chair and everybody sees that it's a purple chair, but I've shown that it's a green chair, and I don't come say, no, it's a purple chair, right? Then, they end up, the judge has to go with what, they had an expert, he said it was a green chair, I guess it's a green chair, right? So, there was a lot of missed opportunities, I think the family felt like, throughout this case, not just the change of venue motions, but any expert witnesses that have been presented in this case, the cross-examination, the family feels.
I'm going to pause there just because I don't want to get too far from, because obviously our most interest is in what the Gonzalez are saying. And I don't want to get too far from her statement while Shannon Gray is talking before I bring it up. Actually, let me go back just a tiny bit. And let's see, we're at 1438. I'll go back to this in a second. And just hear what Christy says here.
The issues that came up much at the hearing. Like
Nope.
that wasn't a big part of the argument, but then it was a big part of his ruling.
Okay, and I'm going to pause there. And again, not to contradict what the victims' families are saying. I'm just wondering, this is a really good point. So it's hard to blame the judge for siding with the defense in that situation, because we all watched the hearing and we all watched the marathon of presentations. We saw the PDFs, we saw the PowerPoints. When did the prosecution get up there and present their side of the case? So they're saying, well, the judge didn't make a big deal of it during the hearing, but then he uses so much of it to weigh in his decision. But that's not his fault. That has nothing to do with the judge. I mean, the prosecution should have presented that evidence. And the fact that he used that evidence to make his decision, that's what he's supposed to do. And if I'm far off the mark, let me know in the chat. But I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting statement. And then I'll go back to where we left off.
Cross-examination, the family feels, has been pretty slim to none. So.
And just my last question, Christy, I mean, you're such a strong family. And there's been so many twists and turns like that. I don't think anyone really expected along the way. I mean, how do you guys manage to hold it together so well?
Oh boy, it's not easy, but I've got him and the rest of the kids and our moms, and we all hash it out together. We all cry together, and just and we've got Shannon to get on the phone, big group calls and figure it out, and we always try to find the silver lining, and like, this isn't the end. This isn't the end of the road. This is not over. This isn't a, because I take it to heart, like, that's a win for them, and it's like tick for tack. But, other people in the family have different mentality than that. And, they say, Mom, you gotta look at the bigger picture. You can't, it's not tick for tack. It's not tick for tack. And sometimes I'm kind of simple-minded like that, but I got to talk to the kids, and they grounded me and bring me back down, and Steve does, and Shannon does. And I just got to keep talking to them and listening to them and have them help me out.
A reminder that there was DNA evidence found on the sleeve underneath the leg. That good luck with that. Let's bring it on. Don't be scared of this. I mean, it's the pinnacle of evidence. Nothing is stronger than DNA. It's 100% science-based. And, we've got, 5 billion, reasons to think that we have the right guy. So let's go. Let's stop delaying, stop playing games, get the right person. And let's get this going.
So you can imagine the frustration that the Gonzalez's have. It's been a delayed process, and now.
Wow, that was quite, well, we'll finish the interview. I'll play the rest of it.
On top of that, change of venue, which they did not want because they wanted it to remain in Moscow. Now they'll have to uproot to a new community for the trial, which is expected to be 3 months long. And if it's Boise, that's really going to be quite a bit of ways for them and for other family members. But they seemed positive overall, especially about the fact that it'll be a new judge. They haven't been pleased with the judge. They feel like he's delayed the process. And it was interesting in that conversation, they also said they haven't necessarily been pleased with the prosecution, which is something that I could kind of sense in the courtroom. So, obviously our heart always goes out to the families. I always try to keep them at the forefront. I was in Moscow for the change of venue hearing when both sides made their case. As you heard from the Gonzalez, the prosecutors didn't really make much of a case, but the defense argued hard for this change of venue. I want to show you this. While I was in Moscow, I went over to the site of where the murders happened, the house at 1122 King Road. You see there's no house anymore. It was torn down. There was an agreement made with the university that owned the house that it would be torn down, but it was just strange being out there because it's starting to grow in. It almost just doesn't even feel like the house was there anymore. And I had seen it before since it being torn down, but I don't know, there was something about this time. I guess just the fact that it's summer and that the grass is starting to grow in and it's starting to just feel like you know, an empty lot at this point. I also went over to the Healing Garden and Memorial for the victims. This is new. This is a new area on campus at the University of Idaho that was actually designed by students, where they can go to remember the 4 victims. And there's a nameplate for each victim, and there's actually an area where you can write messages on paper and leave them there. So it's nice that students now have a place on campus to go and remember the 4 victims, because it really was such a tragedy. I always try to remember, you know, even with all these court movements and we're covering all the ins and outs, it really is about the victims and what their families are going through too right now. So we'll keep you posted. Going to be interesting to see how quickly the Supreme Court makes a decision when it comes to the change of venue, where it's going to be. We'll be following it very closely, and we'll let you know. All right, see you guys. I'm about to get on this flight.
That was something I'm actually really glad you guys told me about that. Thank you so much. I might have missed that interview. Just really interesting stuff. I mean, a couple of, stop the camera for a second. Starting to yawn, you guys. I have to probably go to bed. So it just brings up a couple questions for me. And again, I hate bringing up questions about the victim's family, but when you see them on mainstream media, a couple of these things just kind of stand out. So one of the things that I was just thinking during all of that is we had these conversations last time Christy and Steve spoke, where they were saying, okay, we conducted interviews of the jurors ourselves. And one of the biggest questions that we had after they said that was, well, what do you mean? Like, you did your own interviews? And what I'm getting at is, like, after they said that, one of the things that we were bringing up on the live stream is who's advising them, because they're surrounded by a group of people. So, you know, who's advising them? Was it them who went out and conducted interviews? Was it a representative to the family who did it? But all in all, we know that there was all this chaos in the case because there was an actual person, Edelman, who was hired to do a professional survey. And there was like so much drama and so much questioning of the effect that that survey would have on the potential jurors. It found shocking to us that they were going out doing their own interviews. So the question was, who's advising them? And I brought up Shannon Gray, and people were saying, oh no, he doesn't represent the Gonzalez family anymore. But then you see him in this most recent interview, and he was such a prominent voice for them. And so they do have people advising them. And when it comes to like the little details, I wonder, did I get it wrong, or are they, I don't know. That statement about BK being in a jumpsuit just sets me back, because it's my understanding he has the right to be in that suit during the hearings. I don't know. And maybe each courtroom has its own rules. It'd be interesting, because if this is the same place that the Daybell and Vallow trials were at, did they get to wear regular clothes until it was their trial? I don't know. I do have 2 more things to show you, and then I'm going to call it a night. I don't know why I have so much energy. We've been streaming for like almost 3 hours. Yeah, we're going to get into all of that. I've starred quite a few comments on stalking and restraining orders in here. I want to get to a few of your starred comments, because I don't want them to get too far away from them before we play the next soundbite. Hold on. Oh my gosh, I have 44 starred comments. And I just want to congratulate Angel D for being a member for 2 months. Thank you. Can the judge sanction the prosecution for not turning over discovery? The answer is yes. And the answer per Shannon Gray that we heard just now is he can go back and he can do things. However, again, Red Riding Hood, and I might have like already said this earlier, so sorry for the redundancy if I did, but if it was to you, I know I did say it earlier, but it's my understanding is that in order for those sanctions to happen, it has to be the defense asking the judge to place sanctions on it. So it's going to be up to Brian's defense, I think, to initiate those sanctions. We read some of these. Okay, I wanted to bring this one up because I thought that it's not just, this isn't a joke. This is a very serious comment. So BK was being housed in, it wasn't death row. It's like protective custody or something along those lines, but it's where you would go if you were death row. There's like 4 cells and it's in this stretch or this block at Latah. And he was isolated. He stayed in the cell for most of the day. He could possibly have minor interactions with the guards and other inmates, but for the most part, he was isolated from other prisoners. Where he's going now, he's going to be in Gen Pop, and that means that he will be exposed to other prisoners. And yes, he's high profile and all those things. So, and he's a high risk inmate, so they could put him in protective custody. But basically, that's a very difficult label to carry. Apparently, it really stifles you in prison. It puts a target on your head from inmates, from guards. So he's in a much different, much more serious situation where he's been transferred, apparently, from my understanding. Yeah, where's TRP? And then I started this one from Sirius. I also want to hear about the evidence they got from the search warrants, like the receipts and the ID cards. They've made such a big deal about these pieces, and if they end up being nothing, well, I will tell you my response to that, and I actually am going to bring this up in tomorrow night's Mythbusters show, but I will tell you a couple thoughts I have on that. If they had found an ID of one of the victims there, or if they had, well, let's put the receipts aside, but if they had found an ID, Ann Taylor said on the stand there was no connection to the victims. After that search, there was a secondary search of the social medias, like a huge extensive search, and they still said there was no connection to the victims. So I would think if they had an ID, that would be a connection to the victims. So I would say they didn't find anything. Of course, I don't know. And then the receipts, I don't know. But they did make a big deal out of it. Okay. I think the gag order is to prevent future defamation and misinformation from the state to the public. That's a good statement. So I hope that the bias from JJJ's court is lifted in this new courtroom and the gag order is lifted. I hope it is too. I really do. And then Colleen says, no cameras allowed. I hope the new judge gets rid of some of this circus. And what's the point in having cameras if we have them so far away from the people that we're looking at? We're looking at them to read the temperature in the room. I mean, it's not radio. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if they're not going to show us the temperature of the room or what's going on or the facial expressions or how people are reacting, why wouldn't we just listen to the audio? Like, what's the point? So if in this courtroom they don't have cameras, fine. But I mean, like this, like purgatory of being able to witness what's going on in the hearings is difficult. Especially if we were getting to like witnesses and stuff. I don't know. Well, then again, they when they just had the most recent defensive witness up, I guess they worked around it really well. Amethyst Noir says the state was to have all evidence turned over by September 6th. I didn't see. I mean, I don't know if we would have seen indicators if they handed over the evidence, because the only response I saw was the response to the 17th motion to compel discovery from the defense. And it was basically saying they responded within their legal obligations. And that's it. So I don't know. And if they come up with what's missing, according to Cy Ray, there were things missing. So yes, I mean, aside from the fact that we're told 95% of the metadata was turned over and that the rest of it was to be turned over in September, we have Cy Ray showing, stating to us he's missing pieces of the work. Too Fast says, I feel that JJJ saw this going south fast and with no evidence turned over and wanted another judge to toss the case. They certainly forced his hand a little bit too. The Supreme Court made this ruling quickly. I wasn't expecting it. I started this comment, Shaggy, because I could not agree with you more. I wasn't expecting to hear anything back this quickly. And I do feel like it's a really good sign for things to come. And what did I write down for I was writing notes when Christy was talking, and she says that this judge appears to be, they've already looked the judge up, obviously, heavy-handed. As we were saying before, he gives a lot of max sentencing, and he's very decisive. And I think that this would be, oops, I moved off the comments. So that would make a lot of sense why he ruled so quickly. Well, when you're talking someone's freedoms, there should be more checks and balances. Absolutely. The prosecution has married themselves to the 410 to 420 timeline, and that is a big problem. 8 minutes in the house is very problematic, especially for a random crime of passion. OCD Shaggy says, I think all judges are different, but some judges delegate and others are more hands-on. That's a good point. So he's responding to what I was saying about, obviously, the new Judge Stephen Hippler, oh my God, I was going to get his name wrong, has more clerks. And so OCD Shaggy is just saying, well, some judges actually like to be hands-on and read it themselves. No Nancy Drew says, since it's a new judge, can they refile motions to dismiss even though it was denied by JJJ? It looks like it. It looks like anything he's ruled on could be overturned by the new judge, according to what Christie said in the presence of Shannon Gray, the family attorney. But I don't know what to believe, because I also heard her say in the same interview that she's hoping BK would be stripped of his right to wear civilian clothes in the courtroom. And as far as I know, that he has that right. Anyway, so how can the PCA say things about turning at intersections of Queen and King if the house is on King, according to them? Wait, so how can the PCA say things about turning at the intersections of Queen and King if the house is on King, according to them? Are you saying it's too far up from where a camera could catch it? Or are you just saying because they're using the terminology Queen Road instead of King Road? Because, and I'm sure you've seen it too, Jen. I know you have, because I know you watch all the footage, but those body cam footages from the noise complaints where someone said they said they were headed, and I think it was actually Drip Drop was the first one to show the clip where they were headed up to the house on King Road, and they said Queen Road. So it's a small detail, but maybe not. Haven't cases gotten thrown out for stupid reasons like that? And then back to what I said about the Rust trial. Yeah, I think technicalities. The new judge does seem very pro-transparency, so it's unlikely he would exclude cameras from the courtroom. That's good. I do believe the cameras would be good on split screen on speakers, though. DB Tabe says there was a girl who said, and this is what I was referencing when we were talking about the Mad Greek, but I couldn't remember what the exact source was. There was a girl who said she worked at that and said BK did go to the Mad Greek. Mad Greek said, no, he didn't. Sorry, I'm muted. The fact that he pinged and had no triangulation meant Ping could make up whatever story he wanted as long as it was within the ping range. And that's the way it's been presented to me too. But I'm refraining to see exactly the presentation here because, wow, what was said on the stand was so intense. So during the, I flagged a couple on the witch trials because obviously I have some people here who know what I'm talking about when it comes to these. So April Cutie says, during the witch trials, it's been speculated that the bread contained hallucinogenic properties because the wheat was prone to fermentation, and some people may have tripped during eating the bread. And I think I didn't hear the wheat, but I heard some, and I could be totally mistaken because it was a year ago now that I read the book. But I heard it was like the rye inside of it. But I want to remind everybody something when we talk about the children hallucinating, okay? It is not the same thing as a child in today's society. So women were second-class citizens. They had zero rights. They had less than rights. And because in certain instances, they couldn't even take over property. Children were lower than women on that scale. They had zero power. A poor child would been cast out of society. It wouldn't make any difference what their opinion is. What I'm getting at is how did these children, even if they were hallucinating, have so much power that they, number one, convinced their mothers who are upper on the hierarchy, and then their fathers even higher on the patriarchy. How did they convince them? I mean, these are the lowest and the lowest of society is how they treated children. So how is it that the word of these hallucinating children influenced the parents so much? And even furthermore, if this was a poor family or a non-influential family, what the children said would make no difference. So what I'm getting at is these children were 100% used because nobody would have cared what they said. It was the fact that they were from a family that had power that allowed for what transpired to go on. And then once they had sentenced the first person to death, it was the children who had to continue it because they would have been next. And then Amethyst Noir says, don't get me started about the Salem witch trials. We should talk Swamp Rose. I know, if you follow them, if you know about them, it's incredible. And it's also incredible how it shaped our democracy. So, and using religion to murder people, common. I have to push back on this statement. I like hesitated to even display it. And it's not because I'm not trying to be hard on you, Colleen. It's, we oftentimes think that, but I don't believe that religion is the big problem here. And I'm going to say something really controversial, and I know I'll get pushback from it, and it's okay, because if anyone just digs down and researches it a little bit, they'll understand. But like in the last 100 or like 150 years, I mean, if you were to add up all the people who had been killed for religious reasons, like religious wars, and like the last 10,000 years, it's not even a fraction of the amount of people that have been killed by outright atheism in the last like 100 and 150 years. And I could name leaders like Stalin and Pol Pot, Mao, or Pal or Mao. I mean, atheism is the killer. It's taking God out of society, so you worship the blackness of that. And I would have a conversation with somebody who's atheistic. I'm not like condemning. I love having conversations with people who actually think about these things, but it's a fact. It's not like my opinion. It's millions and millions and millions of people. I just want to say that, sorry. Twizzle stick. I forgot to, as if you had been, what? Oh yeah. So before that earlier, somebody asked if they'd seen Batanti in the trials. In Too Fast is saying he's usually sitting behind Anne. If they made it illegal for media to claim things about the defendant, it would eliminate a lot of the problem, and then we wouldn't have freedom of speech. And it's the so if somebody's saying a lie and they're making money off it, that's fraud. So that's like criminal. But if they're defaming somebody and they're telling a lie about them and they're causing them legal damage, there is recourse for people to go after that. But if we want to hear people say the things we like, we also have to listen to them say the things we don't like and fight back with our own freedom of speech. If you don't know you are being stalked, you can't make a complaint against a stalker. I was thinking the same thing when they were reading that. And so I was like thinking to myself, well, could it be like an aggravating thing that they're adding on? But then when we were reading through the info that Heather gave, they're talking about the actual jail time or the fine attached to it. So it could be like its own individual charge. I don't know. It's a really good question. Good luck trying to make speculation illegal. I 100% think the media needs to do better, have some sort of standard of practice. Because all that ends up happening is that people go wild and they can't even come out and confirm or deny anything that is said about the defendant. That's true. The gag order was to shut the state up, in my opinion. Tony Stevens says, if you didn't know you were being stalked, how could you file a complaint? That's totally agreed. It seems like something, there's an answer to this question somewhere. Heather says, yeah, I'm taking the time to show that when people say that, oh, there's a reason I started this, that Idaho has different rules, people are misquoting the law. So, I mean, when I was reading that, it wasn't with the intent to debunk the Idaho had different stalking laws in other places. I'd heard that too. But that's a really good point. And maybe I'll write that down for the Mythbusters show. Idaho's stalking laws. Okay. If the stalkee know they are being stalked and the stalker is a shitty stalker. I know there's a lot of flaws in this law we just learned about. In my past, the only way I got an order of protection against a stalker first, they need to have priors on the record. If not, a complaint first before or other options. And first off, April, we're so sorry for what you've been through. We're glad you're smart and strong and you came out of this. I don't know, but all I would say is if somebody's in a difficult situation like with this and they're dealing with somebody unreasonable, you have to put something on the record. Because like she's saying, if they have no priors, they wouldn't issue the order, but you do have to put something on the record, because if you don't, then you're never going to be able to get the order. So just always report it. And Tanel says, preliminary trial would have squashed these changes. I think you're so right. And I think that maybe in retrospect, when people look at what could have been differently in this case, the grand jury might be the big thing that could have been changed, and having a hearing and talking about the evidence ahead of time. I started this because I thought it was interesting. A lot of my viewers watch Truth Transparency. And Happy Hound says, TNT did an amazing wrap up today and showed JJ actually saying out loud in the courtroom that he stalled the hearings to getting straight an indictment and was upset with the prosecution. Lots of info. Thank you. We'll definitely check it out. I'll definitely check it out. Shelly says, hey, late to the party. Understand that Colbert got a trial changed move. For anyone tuning in who didn't hear the news, yes, not only that, but new judge, new place of incarceration for Brian, new status in his new housing. And not only that, but I mean, the judge does seem like he's pretty decisive. This ruling came faster than any of us was really expected. So. And BK will be moved soon. So it shouldn't be on the victim's shoulders to press charges. At a certain point, after so many calls to the police for help, but no statement, they should do something. Oh, I have over 200 new comments. I am really sorry. As we get closer to the end. I do have another soundbite for you guys. Hold on. SG and KG said it will take them time to get to know this new community. I hope they do not try to hamper the jury with a new. This is ridiculous. A suit is a right for every individual in the U.S. Constitution. This is going to be on the Mythbusters show. I am going to get info on this suit because it is too important. And if it is a debunk, I'm going to try and get something solid. So suit can be worn. Hey, Tara. The G's don't want justice. Oh, okay. Brian Ramble said, welcome, Brian. I haven't seen you in a while. I hope you're doing good. He might be okay. Casey Anthony didn't get knocked out. There's like a totally different, I didn't know this until we talked about it on the show. There's like a totally different structure in the female and the male prison. They have like a whole protection system. It's very interesting. They have two female leaders. They protect the mom and the pop, and they protect the babies, and they have like all these little, exactly what I just said. Yeah, Twiz, we want you to see you make some more content. Unfortunately, trials are not meant for victims per se. They can speak at the end during the victim's impact, but the trial is about proving guilty or not a Shakespearean play. And I believe in victims' rights, but the whole reason we do this is because without this structure in our society, it will be the deterioration of our society. We have to uphold everyone's constitutional rights. People used to say with freedom of speech, like, I don't agree with what you say, but I agree with your right to say it. It's kind of like that concept. And we have to uphold everybody's rights or we lose them ourselves. Even the least among us has to have their rights upheld, or the highest among us doesn't get them. It's frustrating. LOL, if you're a guilter, if you're a guilter, they all be like, why isn't he dead yet? Okay. Yes, professionalism and flawless with certain cases are to be expected. I have seen cases thrown out for minor errors. The only thing I would say is like what we know about BK I mean, other than the boxing, we know he was an avid outdoor runner. And also, if you've ever run on a treadmill, you don't get as much impact if you were running outside, I feel, anyway. He probably doesn't have the ability to burn calories like he did, obviously. Thanks for being here. He's not getting fat. No, he looks healthy to me. I wasn't backing up the body shaming, but I wish I knew what this comment was for. Okay, I'm sure you guys were talking during Shannon. This is back from Shannon Gray. Someone saw a video where Judge Hippler was talking about the treatment of inmates, and he was adamant that they deserve humane treatment. So, seems humanitarian to me. That just reminds me of something too. Warning Label Nina just did a really, it was a really moving short about the systems that are in Idaho, the jail systems that are in Idaho, and a lot of the treatment of the inmates. I don't even want to repeat some of the things she says in the video. I wasn't planning on showing it, and but maybe I'll show it in another live stream. But I just encourage you to go over to Warning Label Nina's channel and check out her latest short, and you will learn about the incarceration system. But it's glad to hear that the judge is on board with that. Prison reform. Wait, hold on. Good, hard to see with that brilliant camera layout we had, yeah. I have a hard time feeling they have such strong evidence. I still feel not enough evidence to convict me of his guilt. What actual evidence, sir? I wish I had been playing these comments in real time to Shannon Gray's interview. So Tonka says, Wanda Woman, Hippler is a proponent for the prosecution and the DP. They don't have anything near enough to ever arrest him to begin with. From Cabo? Oh, Granny Annie, you get to go to the coolest places. She just left Vegas. Am I muted right now? Okay. I know we're talking about that. I do have another video to show you guys. I just want to get through these comments, which I won't get through because there's 250 of them. The evidence should speak for itself. The justice system should not be adversarial. Oh, yeah. What was up? Can I just bring this up while we're talking about unbuttoned shirts? What was going on with BK not wearing a tie in the last trial? Didn't anyone else, did that strike anyone else as odd in the chat? Because I was talking to Robert when I was live streaming it, and I'm like, I don't know what it is. BK seems like laid back today. Like me, I don't want to say he seems relaxed or less tension, but it's odd. Something's different. And then I was in the live chat, and Two Fast is like, why isn't he wearing a tie? So I'm wondering, why wasn't BK wearing a tie? And then on top of it, he had like multiple buttons unbuttoned, and like one collar was like flipped over and the other one was popped up. Just kind of, going through all that effort to make sure your client is dressed properly, and then that is kind of odd. Yeah, Tara, we're saying the same thing. As far as we know, and it's the second time they said it, because at the last interview at the swearing in at the Memorial Garden, the tribute garden, they said it too. And she had Shannon Gray there, her lawyer. You would think he would turn into, that's, but 2 interviews she said it, so nobody said anything to her. It's just weird. It's just weird. I don't know. But I'll get it in writing so we can know for sure. Considering that the case is going to be saturated in the entire state, I think it would rather have stayed put. Favorable judges and comfortable living condition is going to get real very quick. I had the same feeling, like almost like a sinking feeling. Number one, yeah, the judge, I mean, their personalities, one appears on paper that he is very strict and has a heavy hand, and then the other one seemed, kind of exuberant in court, kind of giggling sometimes. So the personality of the judge. I will say, as far as saturation, remember that what I saw was for people who hadn't been influenced by the media, it was like 22,000 in Latah County. And then just like over in Ada County, it was something like 250,000. So even though the percentages of coverage were nearly the same, the amount of available people to pick from was ridiculously higher. How much higher? I don't know. 9 times higher. Yeah. All right. Hey, Twiz, I totally disagree. Wait, I think. No. Nerds on a rope. I didn't know that was an invention. Candy necklace. The penitentiary is a very different place from the Latah County Jail. And that's the other thing, like, for the defense. It's getting real quick. Like the last comment said. I might watch mainstream media to see what they say, but if they show something that seems legit, I still look it up myself. I think we all will for the rest of our lives now. It's so crazy. Think of like all the things we've heard said in the mainstream media that are complete hoaxes now. It's crazy. Angel D, thank you for the comment. I don't know, it's like an hour ago, but it's very sweet. Thank you. Yes, I agree with Brian Rambles. And also, what we can prove is an outright lie or cover. Prove, not theorize. People don't lie without reason. Yeah. So Tanel, I just had to absorb it for a second. Tanel says, JJJ, in quotes. I don't know, Bill Thompson. What do you think, bud? I don't know what this is from. So free BK 100%. If some real evidence comes out, I'm open to changing my mind. But as of now, I think he's innocent. Wanda, thank you for being here. You've been here for like almost the whole 3 hours, so we appreciate you. Sidebar video titled Curious Noises on Lindenwood Lane has valuable audio that may explain why it is redacted until trial. Boom, boom. Okay. Sidebar, like law and crime sidebar. Because I thought the only mainstream media that actually reported on Linda Lane was when Ray Hughes had brought it. So maybe it was to sidebar. I'm going to be honest. I don't think Linda Lane is real. I've studied Linda Lane. I have lots and lots of videos on Linda Lane. But the reason I say that is I recently saw a live stream, which basically convinced me we would have seen someone arrested by now if that was real. And it would have been taken down too, because it's not just about the evidence being evaluated and picked apart. It's about what that evidence does to witnesses in the case. So if somebody sees something on Linda Lane, it might affect their testimony. So when evidence like that would be leaked in a gagged case, not only would have been taken down, but the person who leaked it would have been arrested. And all signs point to we're looking at a fake video. Now, it could be from a different date and had the timestamps put in. It's certainly Linda Lane. It's certainly at some point, but it doesn't look like that's real. And we can apply that to a few other things. But I mean, I'm open to anybody telling me that there's some sort of loophole I'm not thinking of or something we don't know about it. But we would have seen someone arrested for leaking that, because the only people who had access to that were the owner of the evidence and law enforcement. And if law enforcement leaked it, I mean, we had Shannon Gray, the first time I saw him, was at a hearing to explain the non-dissemination order for leaked information. And people were almost punished in that hearing. I mean, yeah, so there you go. I'll stop talking. I'm a little sad about Linda Lane. What can I say? Spent a lot of time on it. All right. Yeah, we read that. I think I'm way behind on the comments because I've read these. Yeah. Put down a little bit. Unshaven, shaggy hair, poor diet, and unshaven, shaggy hair, poor diet, and in stripes with a little ball and chain like an old prison movie. Pushing the guilty narrative probably causes it. Should keep quiet a little longer. JB says, they want his eyebrows as bushy as possible for trial. If he can't shave, he can't groom himself. Most of these things are essential to maintaining a healthy population within the confines of prison, anywhere in the world honoring the Nuremberg Code. And I think that's where the defense brought up the human rights issue. And it said, look, we have these, basically she was just attacking the death penalty in its totality as a whole. And she must have been referencing the Nuremberg Code, but she basically said we have treaties with other countries saying we won't engage in this cruel and unusual punishment. BK has a right to wear a suit in court. It is not a privilege. My question is, what do the Gonzalez know that only the judge and the prosecutor know, which makes this conviction a slam dunk? Heather says, literally shaving haircuts and feeding you a diet that your body needs is not a special treatment. Neither is wearing a suit. Plenty of people are out on bond and come to court in regular ass clothing. Will he be allowed tweezers in jail? Can someone send me an eyebrow? Jeff says, I know little and lean towards guilty. I can only imagine how the Gonzalez family feels with what they know and believe. Yeah, Heather threads her eyebrows, obviously. You don't have to have tweezers. It's a lot less dangerous. Oh my gosh, am I to the, no, I'm not to the end of the comments. According to AR, it is a prisoner's right, as long as the lawyer gets it and brings it to them. Absolutely. And I really want to back up what AR told us. I want to find something that I can read that can back up what he says. Like, they literally expect the county to be doing things that 100% are illegal and human rights violations. He hasn't had a trial yet. If you were speaking after conviction, that's fine, but he's still considered innocent. And we're going back to, I believe, Shannon Gray. Everyone's emailing each other tips in the chat. Don't know. I like her hairstyle. It's better than Taylor Swift tick for talk. I think, are we talking about Christie's hairstyle? I think the opposite. Defense has stated that they think Brian is innocent, so they know something the prosecutor doesn't know yet. It's a good statement. You should wear Sunday attire to court. Wait. You should wear Sunday attire for court. How were they raised? Okay. I look at it the same way as I look at people. Like, it is not about caring what people think or worrying what people are going to judge you if you wear. If you respect somebody, if you're going on a date, if you're going to see your grandmother, if you respect somebody, to show that respect, you dress respectfully. You don't do it for yourself. You do it for the other person. And so that's what I feel. And that's the whole thing, is when people say, oh, well, it's modern, you don't have to wear dressy clothes to court. It's not how it works. You're trying to express respect for the judge who's running the show. It's just ignorant not to do. Look at a circuit map of America. Each has its own rules. Idaho belongs to the 9th. This is why some states have different regulations overseeing courts. Tick for tack. I thought the saying was tit for tat. I heard her say that too. Maybe I'm wrong. I thought I was wrong when I heard her say that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been saying it wrong all these years. What the hell, Steve? You exaggerate so much about your own opinions, making it sound like they are of general knowledge and determination. Yeah. So I'm just backtracking a little. These comments were made when Stephen Christie said, we have the gold standard for evidence. We have the DNA. And then Amethyst Noir came back with 19 picograms is not science. Because I think you need like 150 or 120 in order to typically conduct the test. And they had 19. Tara says, Andrea Burkhardt explained why Brian gets privileges he does. Comes down to circuit court rules. It's not up to the local courts. The great Kohlberger, the great enigma. DNA should be able to be witnessed or repeatable. Agreed. And I was watching Thought Riot the other day, and Malia brought up a good point where she's, and I mean, I know that we don't just have endless resources to create these facilities, but she was saying that the DNA testing is also not done blindly. And it's also not done by necessarily a third party when they do it. So I thought that was interesting too. I wanted to look more into, in addition to what you're saying. Oh yeah, Aubrey's DNA podcast. She's got an excellent channel that Heather just linked in the chat. I was tuning in. She has really knowledgeable guests, and it's a great show. Please do go check her out. Yeah, I don't know why. It's like, well, you're really not great live stream tonight. I'm AR-less. I couldn't imagine being in this situation. I think about my daughter being bullied and how I felt. I don't know how they are even functioning. The $8,000 garden costs $800,000. Who's looking into it? Yeah, I know the podcast goes after Aubrey's DNA podcast. When I said I had 2 other sound bites, I'm just going to tell you what they are while I'm looking through these. And I probably should put one on so I can read through these comments and star some good ones for us. Since I've read through all 42 comments, I started before. So there were 2 videos that I wanted to play. The first one was when Robert was on here earlier. He said he dropped a new video. He said it was 15 minutes long. He really encouraged us to watch it. And he said it was Idaho 4 based about the change of venue. So I thought that would be interesting to put on. And then I'm trying to end with a tribute video. And I was going to play mine, but we can look up one of Justice's too, if she's still here. Okay, so let me pull up Robert's channel. And then I'm going to go to bed. Okay, let me share my screen. So this is Robert's channel. It is Robert with True Crime Podcast 162. And it's called, the video we're watching is called Idaho 4 Venue Change Exposes the Disturbing Truth Behind This Movement. Excellent title, Robert.
I'm headed to the bottom of the bottle. I've been drowning, I've been floating away. Every other dollar that I got in bed, I probably went and did away. I'm okay, I ain't liking it, babe. I don't even wanna talk, I'm just smoking my haze. I've been stuck in my ways, I've been stuck in for days. I've been staring at the clock as the radio plays. I've been swayed. Yeah, rolling another, I'm stuck in my seat for the whole control of my speech. Yeah, I've been trying to get off this couch for a minute and a whole week. No kidding, I'm skinny, I cannot eat. Got a million things that depend on me. Yeah, every friend in my family, from a girl, every fan I meet myself. I'm too on, I'm too on. Come down, make new thoughts, like jumping off of that rooftop. Hold my devil and I do nothing, make moves based on my mood drops. Like who drops, like who drops. It's yo.
Hey, what's up, guys? What I want to go over today is the change of venue. Yeah, I know it's been a little bit for me to be on the Idaho 4, but I just read the change of venue document this morning, and I want to go over it. So, on January 30th, 2024, defendant Brian C. Koberger filed a motion for change of venue pursuant to Idaho Criminal Rule 21, Idaho Code 19-1801, Article 1, Sections 1, 6, 7, 13, and 18 of the Idaho Constitution, and the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 14th Amendments of the United States Constitution. On February 8th, 2024, the state filed an objection to Koberger's motion. The hearing on Koberger's motion was originally scheduled for June 27th, 2024. Thereafter, the parties stipulated on continuing the hearing to August 29th, 2024. On July 22nd, 2024, Koberger's filed a memorandum in support of motion to change venue with various exhibits attached. The state filed an additional objection on August 12th, 2024, and Koberger filed a reply on August 19th, 2024 with additional exhibits. A change of venue hearing was held August 29th, 2024. Koberger was presented and represented by Ann Taylor, Elisa Massoth, and Jay Logston. The state was represented by William Thompson Jr. and Ashley Jennings, Latah County Prosecutor's Office, and Ingrid Beatty and Jeff Nye, Office of Attorney General. At the hearing, defendant presented the expert testimony from James Todd Murphy, Dr. Amani Elahi, Dr. Brian Edelman, and Dr. Veronica Dare. The state did not call any witnesses. The court has spent months carefully considering the legal and logistical concerns with a trial of this length and magnitude, carefully reading each submission, listening to each expert, and evaluating each party's position. Based upon the totality of the factors, defendant's motion to change for change of venue is granted. On November 13th, 2022, 4 University of Idaho students, Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Xander Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, were found deceased in Gonzalez and Mogan and Kernodle's off-campus home in Moscow, Idaho. The cause of death was for each was ruled homicide. As news of the tragedy broke, media outlets from around the country descended upon Moscow as law enforcement investigated. News stations, newspapers, and social media were flooded with stories and speculation about the homicides. Throughout the course of the investigation, the MPD, in partnership with the University of Idaho, the Latah County Prosecutor's Office, and the Idaho State Police, held press conferences to answer questions and reassure the public. Appropriately, the information released was limited to protect the integrity of the ongoing investigation. On December 30th, 2022, Kohberger was arrested and charged with the 4 counts of murder in the first degree and 1 count of burglary. Again, media outlets descended upon Moscow, and the news coverage quickly focused on Kohberger. That same day, an order governing courthouse and courtroom conduct was entered to help alleviate any potentially prejudicial photography, audio.
I'm going to pause there for 1 second because I want to read a couple comments. Okay, so I started a few new comments I wanted to read. So this one says, from Colleen, I don't think AT would work this hard for someone she didn't believe in. I know. And to hear her, the way that she said that he is guilty with conviction. So Ida says, I lean guilty. I also listen to all the innocent theories, but haven't heard anything of substance yet. The trial will be fascinating. It definitely will. We don't even know what the real narrative or the real evidence is. We don't know if there is any more evidence. And then we were talking about the Alex Murdaugh trial, and Glenda says, Alex Murdaugh wore a suit until the jury said he was proven guilty, then orange suit. I'm really... It is like really cold up here, you guys. It's too bad everything I own is covered in dog hair. Like, hold on a second. I have to pin it up. I don't know why this isn't working. Criminal Confidential says, if we treat prisoners as subhumans, we can't expect them to act human. It is 100% cruel and unusual punishment. How can we send someone to jail and force them to give up their morality and join a gang based on immoral principles? Forced to do it when you go there. It's absolutely, it's just terrible. And it is cruel and unusual punishment. And I thought this was a good comment from Brian I wanted to bring to you guys. God, I don't know if a huge court is a good thing as it relates to Harvey Oswald type events. It's an interesting statement. I just thought I'd bring it to the chat. And then I have some more comments. So I'm going to play Robert, and I have 20 new comments. I just want to read through them and see if you guys are chatting with each other or something you want me to display.
And video recordings and interviews within the courthouse. The conduct order has remained in place throughout the proceedings. Because of the extensive media coverage from the outset of the homicides, a non-dissemination order was quickly put into place by stipulation of the parties on January 3rd, 2023, to help protect Kohberger's right to a fair trial by impartial jury. The non-dissemination order, as amended, has remained in place throughout the duration of this case in an additional effort to help protect Kohberger's right to a fair trial. On November 17th, 2023, the court entered an order removing the cameras from the courtroom Since that time, the proceedings have been streamed via the court's YouTube channel, which in theory allows public access to the proceedings while minimizing prejudicial photographs and videos focusing on solely Koberger at this and his every move. Despite efforts by the parties and the court to protect the jury pool from being inundated with information that is potentially prejudicial and false, extensive media coverage by mainstream media sources such as newspapers, radio stations, and television news outlets has continued throughout the state and nationally. Additionally, and perhaps more challenging, is an ongoing spread of prejudicial misinformation, rumors, and patently false theories of the case on social media outlets such as Facebook, podcasts, and blogs. There have also been numerous television shows and documentaries produced about the homicides, and at least one book has already been published. The parties agree that the case has generated extensive coverage by the media, internet sleuths, and other trying to capitalize on the tragedy, but disagree on how the court should attempt to remedy the issue to ensure Koberger is tried by a fair, impartial jury. In some, Koberger argues that the venue must be changed from Latah County to a location with a larger population that is geographically distant from where the homicides occurred. The state asserts that a larger jury pool, extensive jury questionnaires, and voir dire.
Okay, so I don't know if you're still pulled over, but since you wrote this, I'm going to read your comments really quickly. So Happy Hounds says, Rose, hey, I was just out driving at night and I pulled over to the side of the road and I'm still sitting here on the side of the road and need to turn my car heater on. So thank you. And I'm glad you're enjoying the live stream and I appreciate you being part of the conversation. I'm going to read some of your comments just in case you're still pulled over. So the next one, Happy Hounds, right, is criminal confidential. Yikes. Oh, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Because Jen's in here and she's talking a lot of history. In fact, they're talking about Constantine right now. I start a few of your comments, Happy Hounds. And then she writes, it was pretty clear. I think you'll see it when you watch Lana's change of venue video. And Bill Thompson has been lying and it is coming to light to the judge and hopefully to Steve Gonzalez. Oh, caught with his pants. Yeah, and I'd actually play it, but I've never played anything that I can recall from Truth and Transparency, and I don't know if she allows that. Some of the other comments I starred while I was here. This was a good one from Amethyst Noir. The defense attorneys can't, by malice of perjury, state BK is innocent if they do not believe that statement. I thought that too. Somebody said that they're doing it more and more nowadays, but I mean, to say it outright like that, that sounds like perjury, right? If it's not true. Like you just said, malice of perjury. Let's read it again. The defense attorney can't, by malice of perjury, state BK is innocent if they do not believe that statement. That's really powerful. I appreciate you leaving that comment. While I'm paused, oh, I think we read these comments. All right, let me start this back up. Again, we're watching Robert with True Crime Podcast, and if you want to visit his channel, it's scrolling below. Robert is my streaming buddy, but he is helping a friend out tonight, and it's a very dramatic situation, so he can't be here. I gotta press play.
Are significant remedies that will result in a fair and impartial jury in Latah County. No, he will not get an impartial jury in Latah County. He will not. In addition to the issue from juror prejudice resulting in the extensive coverage of the homicides in Koberger by the media and others, and the smaller population of Latah County, the defense also asserts the trial should be moved outside of Latah County for the convenience of the parties and witnesses and in the interest of justice. The state disagrees that moving the trial would be in the interest of justice or convenience to the party and witnesses. Bill Thompson is trying everything he can not to get this trial moved out of Latah. He really is. As noted above, at the change of venue hearing, Kohberger presented expert testimony from James Todd Murphy, Dr. Amani Alayi, Dr. Brian Edelman, Dr. Veronica Dare. Additionally, Kohberger submitted several exhibits depicting news stories, news clips, and social media posts from
I'm going to just pause, Robert, right there, because I have some more comments I want to discuss really quickly that just came through. So Tonka says, I'll be looking for deeper connections between the new judge in Latah County and U of I. And my fact checkers couldn't find a connection between U of I and the new judge. I'll tell you that. And I'd love to hear anything you can find out, Tonka, too. But, and basically, like, all the information that I have on the new judge and the change of venue, Too Fast gave me today, one of my moderators. And I also want to give credit to Nina. She, Nina from Warning Label Nina, actually was really fast, and she sent me that just really kind of her. Shout out to Nina. She sent me that document right away too, within a few minutes of my mods. So thank you, Nina, for thinking of me. Yeah, so anything you find out, please bring it to the chat. Let us know. The Innocence Proclamation, that's what we're talking about, where AT literally says her client is innocent with conviction. So I guess the question is, if we come up here to Amethyst Noirs, the defense attorneys can't, by malice of perjury, state BK is innocent if they do not believe that statement. Criminal Confidential, or the Good Gen. And now these people are sitting in just about every major position in our country, unbeknownst to most. Stealth is the game. And the new judge is a tad bit scary to me. Tanel, I'm glad you're not the only one. I mean, compared to JJJ that we've seen, this is in a sense, judge seems a lot more intense. And it looks like the Gonzalezes feel the same way at this point too, which all right. I'm going to press play, and then I'm going to star these 18 new messages we have.
From this court, for this court's review. The state did not call any witnesses or submit any evidence.
Sorry.
The court will summarize the key takeaways from the testimony offered by each of Kohberger's experts. James Murphy is the president of TrueScope North America. TrueScope provides media.
So I just wanted to, I'm not going to go into too many details, but something came up tonight and AR was not able to be here. I just got a message about it. It's kind of explaining it to me. Certainly not going to go into details, but what I will say is we know that AR has had, some struggles with his health and other things recently. I just would ask that you keep AR and Jen and their little dog pack in your prayers tonight. And it's too bad AR couldn't be here. I'm not sure if he's going to be here tomorrow either, but I will keep you posted on his status and can't wait to have him back on the show. And Robert from True Crime Podcast, who we're playing right now, is the one who just gave me the update in Discord. So thank you, Robert, for keeping us in the loop, or keeping me in the loop. I appreciate that. And AR, if you're watching, we love you and we're thinking about you and everybody. That we've got almost 100 people watching right now. We're down from like 30 minutes ago. We're all praying for you and we're keeping you in our thoughts. Same with Jen in your support system. So, nothing. All right, let me regroup. I'm going to play this for a minute while I star a couple more comments, and then we're going to call it a night, you guys.
Monitoring services that offer information to help understand the impact of media coverage on a particular community. TrueScope looks only at mainstream media sources such as newspapers and news stations. Of the mainstream media coverage in Idaho of this case, 36% of that coverage has been within Latah County. This would include media like the Moscow Pullman Daily News, Lewiston Tribune, and the television news station out of Spokane, Washington. Koberger requests this case be moved to Ada County, which has 34% of the mainstream media coverage in Idaho. While the media coverage percentages are similar between the two counties, Ada County has a much larger population than Latah. According to Murphy, this means that the media coverage in Ada County is much more diluted, while Latah County is saturated with such coverage.
We're back to the Salem witch.
Stated differently, media coverage in Latah County offered twice as many opportunities to be seen per person than in Ada County. The higher the volume of coverage in Latah County, coupled with the smaller pool of eligible jurors, means people in Latah County had twice as many chances to be exposed to this case versus those reading in Ada County or residing in Ada County.
Oh, whoops, I didn't mean to.
EXC attached to defendant's motion in support of change of venue. When looking at the volume of media coverage over time, Ada County had a higher volume of media coverage from February 23rd, 2023 to June 2023. However, since this time, Latah County has consistently had the higher volume of media coverage, with the two counties being similar coverage in their current coverage of the case. All of this taken together means that the probability of Latah County residing, Latah County.
You guys, I am so tired. I'm going to have to wrap this live stream up because I'm going to fall asleep. I'm going to read the last comments that I starred just because I thought they were really interesting, and then I'm going to call it a night. It's like 2:30 in the morning where I am, and I wake up really early. So, and I kind of lost my energy after that AR update. So I don't really feel like keeping going. I'm just going to read these last starred comments I had just to support my chat who's been in here discussing these topics with us all night. So Tonka says, so there were a couple interesting comments about the judge that I hadn't heard, so I appreciate those a lot. I'm holding on to the hope that this judge was chosen because of his medical field litigation. And it's another good point that you bring up, too, when you say chosen, because it was the Supreme Court who stepped in and hand-selected this person. Rose, a channel called Patch, oh, I know who it is, did a short drawing a line from Hipple and the firms. He was previously involved in Right Back to High Folk in Moscow. It's the only lead I've had to something about corruption. I mean, I've only known about him for, I don't know, 12 hours, but that's an interesting place for me to start. I will definitely look at Patch's channel. I know their channel. And Brian Rambles says, mark my words, it'll never make it to trial. And I have 11 new comments. Oh, thank you so much for showing up. It was a great show, and I wasn't expecting much because I was winging it on my own. So it's been really nice having you guys here. It's sweet. You can call me whatever you want. I love you, Jen. You're so sweet. Jen, you have been incredible in the chat too. Amazing comments. All of you, like, thank you so much for giving me so much material. Honestly, if I'm just here sharing my own thoughts, it's not as interesting as if we have the group thing going on. Well, obviously. Oh, Heather, you're still here. I figured all my mods were asleep by now. Well, you guys operate within certain hours. All right. Well, I'm going to sign out, you guys. Thank you so much for showing up to my live stream. And it was just nice hanging out with all of you tonight. And I hope you have a great night. We have an amazing show tomorrow. And hopefully I have AR here. Robert will be here. And we're doing Mythbusters. And we have a huge list of Idaho 4 myths that were clearly debunked. We're going to bring all of those up. If you have ones you'd like us to debunk, bring it to the table. And maybe we'll make it a regular program on Friday nights. So other than that, thank you so much. And I just want to obviously, you know, I'm going to play a tribute video. I can't end a 3-hour live stream talking about these victims without showing something to honor them. I'm going to pull up my channel. If you want to see this tribute video for yourself, you're welcome to. I'm just showing you where it is.
Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, Kaylee Gonzalez,